I want to reconvene the June 6, 2017 meeting of the Brattleboro Select Board. We actually convened the meeting officially at 5:45 and went into executive session. So we're here to start the public session. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 16th, 2017 Select Board meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 16th Select Board meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion carries 5-0. It's time for chair's remarks, and I don't really have any, except to say that was strolling on the Heifers weekend, and it was a nice weather, so it was a nice event, and I don't know how many people got to enjoy it, but there were a lot of visitors coming into our town, and we always appreciate that. Does the town manager have any remarks?
I have one quick reminder to the community regarding the upcoming change in the recycling program, the curbside recycling program. There will be a mailing going out to every address in town shortly around this, and we'll give another reminder at the beginning of the June 20th Select Board meeting. But on July 1st, as has been planned now for about the last 6 months or so, the curbside collection will switch to a commingled single stream system. If you want to keep putting your recycling materials out in the manner that you're used to, that you've been doing for years, you're certainly welcome to do that. But anybody who wants to switch to putting the paper and the cardboard and the cans and the bottles all into one bin, it can do that as of July 1st. Good news is that we'll be, in addition to saving some money through this transition, recycling more material. Some of the plastics, we've continued to collect 1 through 7. 3 through 7 have not been recycled in recent years through the old program, but through this new program, all 1 through 7 will be recycled. And the one factor of this, because we'll be now sending the material to Rutland, to the Casella processing center, rather than having it be part of the Windham County system with the solid waste district, the recycling containers, the large community containers that are at Fairground Road, will be removed as of July 1st. So people will be relying on the curbside program. We know that there are some people in Brattleboro who have used those, and we want to remind folks that they can go and do drop off at the solid waste district site. But we also believe that a large percentage of the material that's been put into those community containers has been coming from outside of Brattleboro. And so that was a factor in the decision making regarding the switch to this new system.
And the site is at Old Ferry Road?
Old Ferry Road is where the Windham Solid Waste District site is. And again, there'll be a postcard with all this information. It's actually a joint postcard between the district and the town. It's going to have some district related information on it, as well as this town curbside related information. That'll be going out shortly. We expect people to receive it within the next week or so.
Great.
Well, it's great that the 1 through 7. So
Yeah.
that's definitely an increase. If you those higher numbers are those numbers that you never quite know.
Right.
I never quite knew whether I could really put those in or not.
Now you
So
can.
that's at least good news.
Does anyone on the select board have any comments or committee reports?
Quiet is a church
Quiet.
house.
Now I want to open it up to public participation. And if anyone in the audience would like to make a comment or in any way participate on something that is not on the agenda tonight, this is the time to do so. Yes, and if you can go up to the microphone and state your name and where you're from. And just so everybody's aware, the microphone does not do anything, amplify anything in the room. It's for television purposes. So if you go up, if you don't hear yourself being amplified, that's why.
Okay, can I get something?
Sure, give it to me here. Thank you. Thank you.
So my name is Tara Cheney. Oh, so it doesn't do anything. You already said that. And I am the CEO of Vermont Roadworks. We're an asphalt paving company. I'm here with my lead salesman and paving foreman, Christopher Minkler. And I wasn't able to get on the agenda, but I'm here because I would like to ask the town of Brattleboro if they would consider doing a third-party check agreement. My husband, Fred, and I, we own a home in Brattleboro and Guilford, so therefore we're taxpayers. We have quite a few accounts with the town of Brattleboro, winter snow removal. We also do landscaping, and we did the paving for Brattleboro last year. Last year we also did 70,000 ton in area towns. But paving is extremely expensive, and we're still a new company. To run a town job, you need a paver, which is about $500,000, a 12 to 15 ton double drum roller, which is $135,000. You need a 10-wheeler and 8 to 13 of them. They're $150,000. A 3 to 5 ton roller is $32,000. And then for the mix, an average town job is 4,000 ton. That would be $224,000. And that's not including labor, tack, milling, reclaiming, many insurances, additional overhead, and trucking. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time, but what I'm asking is that you could agree to a third-party agreement, which would mean that you would write a check out to our asphalt supplier and us. You would not pay anything more. You would be paying the same amount that you'd be paying us if we were to win a bid. And it would just cut our overhead costs. And many, many towns are doing it now. I have a third-party agreement, a really good one. The one I sent to Brattleboro last week was a little convoluted. The last page of that one is a nice, simple agreement that I actually like with Brock's Industries. I think that's probably it. I mean, I just want to reiterate that you won't be paying anything more. You'll just be writing a joint check. And many towns are doing it, many local towns. We just did one this week with Fitzwilliam.
All right, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
We're not in a position tonight to
Right.
answer that question, and I think what we'll do is give this information to the town manager,
Okay.
and he can tell us.
Chris, do you want to add anything?
Well, just basically, that
In the mic, please.
Yeah. The TV world can't hear you unless you're in front of it.
Thousands of people.
I always want to be a celebrity.
Oh, this is it.
Basically, just that you may not have seen this before, and it is happening in more and more towns. Westmoreland, Chesterfield, Walpole, Fitzwilliam, and Whitingham, just to name a few off the top of my head, are doing this. And it really helps out newer companies because we're up against the big boys, the heavy hitters, and we want to get there and we want to employ more people, but we're going to need help like this. And we're not asking for anything it's a win-win for everyone. It's just asking for 2 checks. One to be cut to the plant for the mix that's bought, because we can rack up $1 million in a month paving many, many towns. And so we're just hoping that you can see where we're coming from. And if there's anything, if there's any downside, I would like to know what it would be, because I know these other towns are doing this. So I'm just hoping that you could help us out.
Yeah,
There may not be a downside. I mean, so it's just a matter of looking it over.
Yes.
So you're talking about 2 separate checks, not one check that has both names on it. I work in a bank, so I just want to make sure that you've checked with your bank on their third-party check cashing agreement policies.
Yeah, they do want, I think that we could work it out if the bank didn't agree to do 2 checks. But they do want 2 names on a check, and I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
And we'll work that out for sure. But I also just wanted to add that we're not even 3 years in this business, and we just hired 17 people. We're working with VTPTAC. We're almost Hub Zone certified. We're a women-owned business, and we want people to want to come to Brattleboro, work in Brattleboro, raise a family in Brattleboro, and we want to be able to retain high-quality employees.
Great, thank you. And we'll just have the town manager report, he'll report back to us. Does that sound good?
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else in the public have anything that they would like to talk about that's not on the agenda? Yes, please come up to the microphone and say who you are and where you're from.
Oh, it's pretty.
My name is Abby Manukin, and I live here in Brattleboro. I work with Mother Up and 350 Vermont. And just as an important side note, I may have to go home for kid bedtime, so I will miss out on the public discussion of increasing racial diversity in town offices and staffing. And I just want to express my wholehearted support of all efforts to do that. And although I'm speaking more in this comment to climate justice issues, we really feel strongly that racial justice and climate justice are intertwined, and there is no justice until there's justice for all. So I want to just have that as an important sidebar, because I know the public comment may come later and I will have to leave. But I am here to speak to these postcards that some of you may have received. I hope you did. Yay! Ooh, we were not targeting you, John, but I'm so glad that you received some. Some of you also may have received some. But we were tabling on Friday in response to the federal government's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. And it makes it very clear that states, including Vermont, cannot rely on the federal government to address climate change, and that this responsibility perhaps has always lied, but now even more so lies with states and local municipalities. And it's really time for Brattleboro to lead the way. And we can't assume that others are going to take action first and then follow suit. So I'm here to ask for no new investment in fossil fuel infrastructure, complete commitment to energy efficiency in all municipal buildings, greater investment in renewables, greater investment in public transit, including sidewalks and bike lanes, and just really showing the state leadership in this area. So thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? Yes, please.
I'm sort of Abby's partner in this regard, but not in that regard. My name is Daniel Quip. I live here in Brattleboro, and I'm an organizer and activist with 350 Brattleboro, which is a local group of 350 Vermont. So Abby does like the families thing, and I do the thing for lonely people. And so I was reading the town plan today because I had some time on my hands. And
Oh, really?
yeah, it's interesting reading, right, John?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So when the federal government abdicated their responsibility towards bold climate action, this is not a surprise. You know, the policies that the federal government were about to enact were an abdication of that responsibility anyway. So it's just, you know, kind of making it very clear. And I wholeheartedly agree with Abby that the responsibility now falls on states like Vermont and towns in those states like Brattleboro. And I just wanted to kind of put on record, and I'm really disappointed that the press aren't here tonight because this is a great showing for select board meeting.
Can I wait?
Oh.
Before we go over,
Before we get over.
Badger the reformer.
And the comments.
I don't know about the comments, but I do know that the reformer contacted me
Yep.
to tell me they could not be here tonight, but they are going to be watching this.
Right.
So we don't. I want to pound on people.
Okay, hi Chris.
And I know sometimes the comments does the same thing. So
All right, hi Wendy. So in the town plan, there are some goals around energy, and I just wanted to kind of put them into the record. And I would be really curious if, as a board, you had any way of getting feedback to the public about where we stand with those goals. Like, I don't expect that feedback tonight, but maybe in the coming few weeks or months. So the first goal was to reduce carbon emissions in Brattleboro to 30% below 2010 levels by 2030. Second one was to increase locally generated electricity from renewable sources to 10% of Brattleboro's total electricity consumption by 2030. which isn't so far away, really. The third one was to increase the percentage of housing units supplied with solar domestic hot water to 10% by 2030. Fourthly, to increase the share of Brattleboro commuters carpooling to 10% of all commuters by 2030. Fifthly, reduce emissions from municipal and school district buildings and operations 20% below 2010 levels by 2030. And then finally, to increase the percentage of weatherized homes to 50% of all units by 2030. So there's a lot there. I would love it if there was some mechanism for feedback about where we are in terms of progress towards those, whether those goals are still even relevant, given Vermont's commitment to 90% renewable energy by 2050. So I await your comment. Oh yeah, and I'd love to hear more about the plastic bag ban, because I know Mr. Elwell said that we might expect to hear something in June.
Yeah, and we are hoping to bring that to the June 20th meeting. We're getting close. I don't want to promise June 20th. It might end up being July 11th, but we're still shooting for June 20th.
All right, I'll be there.
Okay, so we were talking. So was June 20th or July 11th, the Energy Committee? Is that what you
Actually,
said?
the question was about the plastic bags.
Oh, plastic
Yeah.
bags. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. We were talking about something. We were talking about Energy Committee.
I'd asked for the Energy
Yeah,
Committee
and
to come and give us an update.
we were basically looking at the same time frame, possibly the 20th, depending on how that agenda shapes up. So,
Okay. June and July.
Yep.
And we have a new
Energy coordinator.
coordinator
Energy
for the Energy
coordinator,
Committee and a bunch of new members. And they're going to bring an update and projections for what we need to be doing.
That's great.
From coordinating.
All right.
And while we're on that topic, I just had communication today with Michael Bosworth, the chair of the Energy Committee, about beginning the work that we need to do together between town staff and the Energy Committee around the question of potential sustainability officer. So we will be working on that also through this summer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I forgot, I'm just gonna leave this card for all of you, in case you didn't get one.
Thank you.
Oh, I can show them all of mine, Abby.
I got it.
Feel free to share.
Can I just make one
Oh,
comment?
yeah.
Daniel, I think you win the best attendee record so far, except possibly for Pete Nicholson.
It's getting head to head.
Yeah, you're neck and neck there. But I did want to point out that at our last meeting, I think it was our last meeting, we did vote to put a pellet boiler in the parking garage. So I just want to make sure everyone was aware of that. So that's a good step.
23,000 or more of insulation and
Okay, yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff.
Does anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. That's fine. 43,000.
Does anyone else in the public have anything that is not on the agenda? And I just want to, on the record, because I just received this text from Olga Peters. She and Wendy Levy from the Commons are watching the meeting as we speak. So
Everybody say hi to Olga.
And of course,
Can they prove it?
Yeah.
well, they texted me, so I think they're watching us.
I just have to give it a plug that
I
Chris
Brattleboro
Brodke is always watching.
watching. He's always watching.
He won't text them.
No, he won't text.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we've got everybody watching us. All right, can I have a motion to convene as water and sewer commissioners? We have a motion to adjourn, convene as water and sewer commissioners. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? 5-0. We are water and sewer commissioners. And first up, we have a truck for the Department of Public Works that we're being asked to accept a bid for.
Good evening. I'm Steve Barrett, Director of Public Works, and I'm here tonight to request that the board authorize a purchase of a bid for a Utilities Division service truck. The bid price for the truck was $41,482 from Shear Chevrolet, and that was a state bid that we received. And the state bid is when the state pre-bids vehicles out ahead of time, and the town's able to utilize those bid services. The state bid price for the one-ton truck with a utility body is $41,482, And we have a trade-in allowance of $18,000. So that brings the net down to $23,482. Within the utilities budget capital, there's $42,000 allotted for this purchase.
Does anyone on the board have any comments or questions for our Public Works Commissioner?
I have a question. So one of my favorite things about people like Daniel coming to every meeting is it keeps me accountable. So thank you. So, you know, keeping in mind our town plan goals, how do we factor that in when we're bidding on vehicles? You know, if we're looking to reduce carbon footprints, how are we factoring that in when we're bidding on vehicles?
Well, there's one of the methods that we've used as far as different types of vehicles to save on fuel is within the public works fleet. This particular vehicle is a service truck. So it's difficult to find areas where you could have, say, an electric service truck. But we have purchased and had in the fleet for quite some time some small economy cars, and that were actually pickups in the fleet. So there is an effort, and there's been an effort by the Select Board and also by Public Works to look at the fleet each time we make a purchase and, you know, to consider fuel economy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions?
This is the utilities division.
That's correct.
Is that, and that's the waste treatment, so that area, it's that budget?
That's right.
Not the.
And this particular truck is used, we have the water treatment and the wastewater treatment, and this is all the piping in between. It's all the fire hydrants, it's all the wastewater collection system. This is utilized by the crews that maintain the water and wastewater system piping.
And the difference between the 42 and the 23 goes back into the budget.
That's correct.
Well, I move to award the bid for a utilities division service truck to Shearer Chevrolet in the net amount of $23,482.
We have a motion to award a bid for a utility division truck to Shearer Chevrolet in the amount of $23,482. Any more discussion by the board? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining?
Aye.
So, you're opposed or abstaining? I'm sorry.
I'm gonna abstain from this.
Okay. Jan's left. We'll have to tell him when she comes back. The vote is 4 in favor and 1 abstaining. Now, Steve, you're going to talk to us, I'm assuming, about the the water treatment facility.
That's correct. This is for the drinking water treatment plant. The water plant was constructed in 1989. Previous to that, we had a small filtration plant on Route 30, but prior to 1989, the water was not filtered. It was only chlorinated, and after many challenges and boil water orders, we built the facility in 1989. So now we're looking at seeking approval for 2 different contracts from Dufresne Group for $179,900 for preliminary engineering of the Pleasant Valley Water Treatment Plant and the waste process water line feasibility study at the treatment plant. So first of all, the first part of that is the wastewater, or is the water treatment plant itself. This is to do a preliminary engineering review of the water treatment facility itself, determine that what needs the town needs to have to upgrade that facility. And also, we're looking at getting information on phased cost. So for instance, the facility is operating okay now, but there's a lot of things that have changed since 1989. One critical thing is when we backwash water, now there's a requirement to have fresh water enter the filters after a backwash. So there's a short period of time where we see turbidity in the water, and then eventually that can cause taste and odor problems. So this is also regulatory to bring the facility up to our needs. The second part of this request is an engineering study for all the waste currently goes into lagoons. So the water's filtered through these filters, then it's backwashed, which takes all the debris out of the filters, and it goes to a lagoon. There it settles, and then eventually it's pressed out, and that's a costly item. So what we're looking at is the feasibility of putting a wastewater line from the Pleasant Valley Water Treatment Plant down to Marlboro Road, and that's what the feasibility would be. There's a $30,000 a year that is used just to remove the waste, and that would eliminate that ongoing cost. So we think that this has a lot of merit. There's also a septic tank that's on site where the drinking water facility is. That would eliminate that. And there might be some potential homes in that area that could also benefit from a wastewater line. So that's what we're looking at with these two proposals. In the utilities budget that we went over just a few weeks ago, there was $50,000 that was added, $175,000 that was added to the budget. There was an existing $50,000 in the budget for a total of $225,000. So what we're looking at for a total of these two engineering proposals is $179,900. So this is funded. And the reason that I'm asking to go with Dufresne and Associates is they have worked closely with the town of Brattleboro on their water system, on our water system. They have a complete model of our system that identifies the strengths and weaknesses. They understand our system. They also did a preliminary engineering review of our water treatment plant. And what happened there was we ended up keying on the wastewater treatment plant at the time. The need was greater for the wastewater treatment plant, although the water treatment plant itself, the clean water, the drinking water facility was older. So this has really been put on the shelf. It's something that there's a real big need here for the drinking water, and everybody knows the importance of clean drinking water. So we're looking at, we have a lot of confidence in the Dufresne group to proceed with this study, and that's why we're asking to go with that engineering firm.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to add quickly, because it's come up as a recurring theme in this meeting and others, but especially this evening, we've been talking a lot about energy already. And one of the benefits of the conversion, if the sewer line does prove to be feasible to replace the current waste processing system, is that handling energy that's consumed in the handling of the current waste would be eliminated, and the sewer line would be a gravity sewer line. So there's an energy benefit in addition to being a functional benefit and a financial savings.
That's quite a feat to get that from Pleasant Valley all the way down to.
It is, and I think that's, the key is to have this feasibility study of environmental, and then there's also, we have dual water mains that feed the town. So there's a separation need there also. So it really needs to be looked at and have an engineer's opinion on that, of the cost and the feasibility.
Because all the homes up there are on septic, aren't they?
The homes in Pleasant Valley area themselves are, yes, but when we get into Mountain Home, they're all in the water and sewer system of the town of Brattleboro.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I think, or meetings ago, we had a discussion about the utility budget. And there was talk that we wanted to keep as much money in there as possible because of the water treatment facility. And is this study is going to go, is this the feasibility study that's going to go to inform us about how much it's going to cost to do?
Yes, what we hope to get out of this is to have some better numbers and a menu for this select board as water and sewer commissioners to decide what the next steps are with our drinking water treatment plant. So this will give you an engineer value of what those costs are.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Does anyone in the public have any questions about awarding a bid for the water treatment facility feasibility study? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to award 2 bids to Dufresne Group for Pleasant Valley Water Treatment Facility upgrade preliminary engineering report in the amount of $120,300 and waste process water line feasibility evaluation in the amount of $59,600.
All right, we have a motion to award 2 bids to Dufresne Group for the Pleasant Valley Water Treatment Facility upgrade and a waste processed water line feasibility evaluation.
I've called him Dufresne forever.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Sorry. Aye.
All those in favor of the motion, we'll do it again. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion carries 5. Now we're going to talk about the Welcom Center wastewater pump station, and I believe the town manager would like to say a few words first.
Sure. I want to just set the background to why this item is on tonight and what this represents as part of a larger whole, and then if you need additional information about the technical side of the project at the pump station, Steve will certainly be able to provide that. So the Welcom Center pump station was built and has been owned and operated, owned by the state of Vermont since the Welcom Center was first built out south of Exit 1. But it's been operated by the town of Brattleboro as part of our sewer system, and we get reimbursed by the state for the cost of that operation. Over time, the larger proportion of the sewage that's flowing through that station is actually sewage from Brattleboro properties, as opposed to the Welcom station itself, and most particularly with the development of Commonwealth Dairy. That is a primary customer. That facility is a primary customer of this pump station. And so the state approached the town several years ago, actually, and identified a desire on the state's part to do a full generational upgrade of the plant, basically of the, station, to make it like new with all the component parts of it, and then hand the ownership of it over to the town instead of the state continuing to own an asset that is unusual for them. It's not part of a state sewer system, it's part of a town sewer system. They wanted the town to own it rather than simply operate it and be reimbursed. We've been through the part of the planning for this project where the state and the town have negotiated around that, and a prior select board has embraced that concept as being a very reasonable way to proceed. And while we were doing that, Commonwealth Dairy began looking at the additional potential expansion at the plant. So we've had communication with Commonwealth Dairy, we've had communication with state agencies related to economic development, as well as to the state agencies involved with this actual pump station. And all the parties have rallied around a concept where the generational upgrade of the plant would occur, and at the same time, the capacity of the plant would be increased so that we do have that additional potential for Commonwealth and other customers. We've been in the final stages of a planning process to do this upgrade, and the agreements that would have come to you in the normal course of business would have come, if not at the next meeting, then certainly within the next few meetings. There'll be 2 of those that are the standard agreements for this kind of a project. One being the agreement between VTrans and the town related to the actual pump station upgrade project and the roles that each party will play in that. And the other being a $100,000 grant from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development to the town for the expansion portion of the project, what they call a betterment, to the pump station for the increasing the capacity. So those 2 have been in the pipeline. They're getting finalized now with the proper project schedules and those kinds of details being inserted so that they're ready for your review. And in the meantime, approximately 10 days ago or so, there was a failure at the plant. We have had prior failures at the plant, but have been nursing it along towards the upgrade that's coming. Previously, we've had issues specifically with pump failures. This was a switching system failure that caused the pumps to shut down and caused some sewage to go bypass the plant and into the brook. Obviously, a condition we can't allow to continue to happen. So the state looked at that situation, recognized the urgency of getting the overall project moving as quickly as possible, and declared an emergency. And so that enables the state now to work with us to move as quickly as possible on obtaining what they call the long lead time items. So there's a few components of this station that are going to take several weeks to obtain. the generator, the pumps, and the switching equipment. And then the rest of it can be obtained in a more time-efficient manner at the time that the construction is going to be ongoing at the site. So the parties have agreed. We had a flurry of calls last week around how we could make this move forward quickly because of the necessity of preventing any future overflow from the plant or from the pump station. And the agreement that's before you tonight, first of all, would, if this were not an emergency and were happening in a more orderly manner, you obviously would have seen this in your notebooks for the weekend. So I want to acknowledge that it was not finalized in time by last Friday. It was actually finalized first thing this morning after some additional communication yesterday around the details of it. But it was actually drafted by Town Attorney Bob Fisher, and it's been reviewed by all the parties at the state, and further by Bob, and further by those of us on the town staff. So it's now ready for your approval, and what it accomplishes is a 2-week head start on those long lead time items, which is actually meaningful given the degree of deterioration at the pump station. So we're asking you tonight to authorize that I sign this agreement, which will enable the town to move forward to buy those 3 long lead time items and be reimbursed by the state. The commitment in the agreement is that 100% of this cost will be covered by the state, just as 100% of the overall cost of the project, once we get to doing the 2 additional agreements, will be covered by the state. So the town's not paying any money in the net to it. We'll front money to make the purchase, but we'll be reimbursed by the state. We will supervise both the procurement process and the actual construction process. The construction contracts will be awarded in a normal bidding process because there is sufficient time while we're waiting for the 12 weeks for this equipment to come in. There'll be sufficient time to put the plans for the station out on the street and do a proper bidding process. So we'll be back to you throughout the summer. First at the meeting 2 weeks from tonight with the other 2 agreements, the normal 2 agreements, and then later on for the awarding of various component pieces of the work. But tonight what we're asking for is the authority to move forward with this emergency agreement that allows for the procurement of the long lead time items.
So we're putting our faith that the state of Vermont is going to pay us.
We are, and they will.
It's the feds that don't pay.
I have faith in Vermont.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
No, I mean,
Questions?
pretty straightforward.
Did I leave anything out?
You got it.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason, obviously, with the Agency of Transportation and the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, Commerce and Community Development is involved because it has something to do with economic development.
That's exactly right.
I don't want people
They're
to
providing the
wonder-
$100,000 for the betterment of the plan.
Right. It might seem odd why they're doing it, but that's a good reason. Does anyone in the public have any questions about the pump station for the Welcom Center? Would anyone like to make a motion?
To approve an agreement with the state of Vermont and the Federal Highway Administration for expedited procurement of pumps, switching equipment, and an emergency generator for the Welcom Center pump station.
We have a motion to approve an agreement with the state of Vermont and the Federal Highway Administration for expedited procurement of pumps, switching equipment, and an emergency generator for the Welcom Center pump station. Oh, Peter.
I'm so sorry.
We have to
As soon as we heard the motion read, Bob and I were looking at each other. We prepared this potential motion as part of your backup materials because this was the form the agreement was in at the time last Thursday and Friday. It ended up being an agreement just between the town and the state of Vermont.
Okay.
So we should take out the reference to the Federal Highway Administration, and I apologize for that.
John, are you okay with taking that out?
I'm fine with a friendly amendment.
Right, so the motion is to approve an agreement with the state of Vermont for expedited procurement of pumps, switching equipment, and an emergency generator for the Welcom Center pump station.
Correct.
Is that right?
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Steve. Can I have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners? We have a motion to adjourn as Water and Sewer Commissioners. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone voting no or abstaining? The motion carries 5-0. Now we're going to move into unfinished business, and the first item is the diversification of town staff. And just to recap, On our May 2nd meeting, we had an item about diversification of the town staff, and we asked the town manager to come back to us with what's going on in town government now and some possible recommendations for the future. So that's where we are here today. So we'll hear from the town manager first, I guess.
Thank you. I'm going to summarize a staff report that we've provided as you requested. The cover to it is a memorandum from me to you, the select board, dated June 1st. And I'm going to speak really just from that. I want to note that attached to that was a legal opinion that was researched and written by the town attorney, Bob Fisher. There were 2 memoranda from the public safety departments, from the police department and the fire department, providing some additional detail about how they, as 2 of our larger departments, actually conduct recruitment activity. And then there were several sample documents, applications and job notices that have been published relatively recently so that they provide examples of how we have reached out to the public when we've had vacancies in various departments. But I'll focus on the memorandum that summarized all of that I provided, and then I'm going to ask Chief Fitzgerald to shed some additional light on the work that the police department's been doing, because they've been, of the town departments, the part of our team that's been the most invested in issues, both employment related and more broadly around diversity and cultural awareness in the community. So I want to begin just by stating a sort of a philosophical foundation for the particular information that we provided in the report. The town staff is committed to diversity as a benefit both to organizations and to communities. So both looking at our town government and at more broadly at the community of Brattleboro, we think it's important to recognize that we gain when we value and promote diversity. More particularly to applicant pools and the recruitment process, since that's the manner, the basis on which this issue was originally raised to the town government recently. We believe that broad applicant pools, by all measures, are important and beneficial to that process. So that's true both in the promotion of diversity as it is in simply ensuring that we get as much attention as possible to our vacancies and can always be hiring the best available people for town service. We believe that the commitment to diversity as a guiding principle in the work that we do requires us to value diversity in all of its forms. So we appreciate the unique circumstances, not only of certain protected classes of people under the law, but of other groups of people who may not have specific protection under the law, but represent populations that have either special needs or require our awareness and compassion related to how we look at the whole community and all possible employees for the town, but also all residents of the town, and how we can best ensure that town government is considering the interests of all people and serving as best as possible to the benefit of all people. And particularly as to how we govern ourselves in the hiring process and the employment process, when both bringing people on as town employees and then in how we manage the affairs of the town and our relationship with the employees. It's important for us to have the guidance that we've received from Bob Fisher in this material. There's a large body of federal and state law regarding these matters that we need to be mindful of when we're making decisions. So it's both our values and our obligation to follow the law that are in play here. We have strived, and we believe we have succeeded in ensuring equal opportunity in all of our employment decisions. And we also strive to provide respectful and equitable treatment to all people in the service that we provide to the community. So those are the standards that we apply in the work that we do. But more broadly than that, we think that we can't succeed either in the work that we're already doing or in the improvements that we intend to make through the this communication that we're having and the collaboration with the community around different ways in which we can extend ourselves further on these matters. We think it's important to note that we can't sustain success in that area as a town government unless this is focused more broadly on the value of diversity in our community and not just on the goal of diversity on the town staff. So we think it's important that the work that we're undertaking address both of those objectives. I'll summarize very quickly the legal opinion, again, just because it provides the framework within which we're talking specifically about these employment-related matters, and then I defer to Bob Fisher if in the further discussion of this tonight you want to go deeper into the details. His letter to us is very detailed. It goes on for about 8 pages and has some attachments to it. So this is very summarized. But in summary, the town is obligated to provide equal employment opportunity to all people. The town cannot discriminate against anyone, even if that discrimination results from acts intended to provide a benefit to a protected class of people. The only exception to the first two statements would be an official affirmative action policy that would grant special preference in employment decisions to one or more legally protected classes of people, drawn carefully and narrowly based on pertinent local data with an outside attorney who has special expertise in this area of the law. And finally, because the sort of cumulative impact of those three feels very constricting, we thought it was important to mention that there actually are a whole slew of things that we can do as town government and together with each other as a community, a variety of actions we can take to visibly and substantively demonstrate our commitment to increasing the diversity of the town's employee team without adopting an official affirmative action policy that would come with it those legal strings, and without discriminating against anyone in our employment practices. And I've tried to lay out in the recommendations part that I'll get to in just a moment some initial thoughts about those kinds of actions we can take that we think would be important first steps and beneficial, but certainly not the complete answer on this matter. You asked explicitly that this staff report include some listing of our historical, where we have historically sought employees and how that has changed in recent times. So those are listed. I won't spend a lot of time individually listing those, but basically we were, until relatively recently, until the past few years, really just using very standard kinds of places where people placed ads. You put them in the local newspaper, posted them on our website, and in some cases reached out through professional associations. More recently, we've started to use the outreach of other public organizations, for the most part, to reach a broader audience through the Vermont Department of Labor's VermontJobLink.com site, through Monster.com and Recruitology.com, which are sites that the Reformer has a relationship with. So when we place an ad in the Reformer, it actually goes to those sites and goes out across the internet, and through our own Facebook and Twitter sites that the town maintains. An important way in which we've reached more special needs parts of our community is through the Creative Workforce Solutions program of the Vermont Agency of Human Services. They take ads from different employers and then distribute them to 15 different organizations that a few of which serve explicitly protected classes, but the majority of which serve special needs populations of one sort or another. So we feel as though that is actually one area where we have made some progress in terms of making sure that we are not just placing these in traditional places, but actually reaching out to the community in a more inclusive manner to those who might not normally be reached by typical means. We also wanted to note that what I've just described applies to basically all the departments of the town and the searches we do to fill vacancies on the town staff. But there are a few areas where individual departments make some particular efforts that are unique to their circumstances. So the Recreation and Parks Department hires a lot of seasonal staff, mostly young people. And they, in recent years, have actually been, recently have started sending a notice to every BUHS student, as opposed to just doing outreach through publicity, but actually individually providing notice to every student that if they want to apply for summer jobs with the Recreation and Parks Department, that those jobs are available. And from that, and even before that, over the past decade or so, we've actually seen that almost every year there have been people of color, and actually sometimes a number of people of color that have been hired through that process to work in the Recreation and Parks program. Something I've just come to learn in the very recent past, and communication I've been having with the community around this issue in preparation for tonight's conversation, is that the population of youth in our community and our region is much more diverse than the population of adults in our community. And so we see evidence of that actually in the results of the youth hiring that Recreation and Parks does each year. And then the police department and fire department, as two of the more visible town departments and two of the larger town departments who do more hiring than others, each have some particular information that is presented here in the report. And the police department in particular has undertaken a significant and intentional effort in recent years to increase cultural awareness training and recruitment outreach to people of color, and more broadly than that, to diverse population. And I've got a couple of comments I'm going to offer here as the initial recommendations for actions we can take together. But as I do that, I'm going to ask Chief Fitzgerald and some of his colleagues from the Community Equity Collaborative to come forward, because they've got some information to share about the work they've done together related to the police department, excuse me, both as it relates to police department employment and also more broadly about engagement with the community around these issues. So initially, for discussion purposes this evening and as a starting point, I believe these are worthwhile actions to take, but we hope it's just the beginning of developing together a collaboration where ideas of our own and ideas and energy from the community will lead us forward positively around these issues. We believe that the town should, related to our employment notices, create a sort of open list, a place where anyone who wishes to engage with us in this and help us reach the broadest possible audience and become more diverse over time can be involved in actually receiving our job notices and directing those where you see fit. So we have similar lists that we have for every time we put out a news release. There's people who have self-selected to be on the news release list. They get those news releases. Same thing with our meeting notices. We think we should similarly have that for our job postings so that everybody who wants to be helpful as part of this process can indeed participate. Specifically, we think community organizations can be especially helpful in that regard because of the fact that most community organizations maintain mailing lists already that can reach a broader audience than we might otherwise be able to reach. And we believe it's important that there be a training element of this, that it not just be about how we do more and broader outreach, but doing some training with the town staff around having a better awareness of bias, both conscious and unconscious, and how to better promote a welcoming and inclusive environment, not just here in the workplace, but again, in the workplace and more broadly in the community. So those are the things that we propose as at least a starting point as we go forward. I think it's important for you to hear from Chief Fitzgerald and the Community Equity Collaborative team regarding the work that they've been doing around these very issues in the community for the past few years.
Can I ask you to each introduce yourselves, and then if somebody wants to give a short description of what you folks do and how long you've been around, I think that would be helpful to start the conversation, and then tell us whatever else you want to tell us.
Mike Fitzgerald, Brattleboro Police Chief.
Diana Wally, I am the convener of the Community Equity Collaborative and also of the Diverse Workforce Development Committee.
I'm Julie Cunningham. I'm the director of Families First that serves children and adults with disabilities. And I've been one of the founding members of the Community Equity Collaborative, which is 8 years old.
That's right.
Curtis Reed, I'm Executive Director of Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity. We provide training and coaching to municipalities across the state around issues of inclusion, diversity and equity, and a founding member of the Community Equity Collaborative and member of the Diverse Workforce Development Subcommittee.
My name is Alex Beck, and I'm the Workforce and Education Program Manager with the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. Everything workforce is kind of what falls on my table, and so knowing the importance of this to our workforce and our community is what brought me to the table at the Diverse Workforce Development Committee.
You want to talk about this, Susan?
Oh, sorry. So it's great to have the opportunity to be here and to have had a chance to meet with Peter Elwell yesterday. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about our committee. It is the diverse workforce work is an offshoot of the Community Equity Collaborative, which evolved out of the race-hate incidents of 2008 and led to a committee that is really monitoring 4 key actions, including anti-bias policing, that came out of that work that was done with United Way, with Vermont Partnership, and with the Alliance for Building Community. And I think what I'd like is to just give you a sense of and focus on the diverse workforce aspect of it. We are a committee that really began with Chief Fitzgerald and Ron Staley's inspiration, wouldn't you say? In our collaborative meetings, it evolved that when we were talking about anti-bias policing, so much of it had to do with your workforce and how you wanted it to evolve and change. It wasn't just the actions of the police department, but it was the makeup of your workforce that you were examining. And Ron Staley, as one of our founding members, found that he had real concerns about the diversity at the school district of the workforce. And you put your heads together and maybe just say how, when we got started, how it felt that it was important to have a separate committee that would work on it.
Sure. We were doing a revamp of the police department. This was probably around 2014. And we looked a lot at our mission statements and how we wanted to be perceived by the community, how we wanted to serve the community. And we really did we turned the department upside down and really had some hurtful conversations with each other, with outside agencies. And part of it that came out of it that I really wanted to have known down in our department was that diversity, we should represent the community. And I believe too often diversity looks more as a tactic. And I wanted to make that a philosophy, not a tactic. It's certainly not a quota. And I had a very difficult time understanding the questions that are probably going to be asked later on tonight. Why weren't we getting applicants from the diverse community? We're here, it's a great town to live in, our pay is comparable, the low crime rate, we're very interactive with the community. Why wouldn't you want to come work for me? And that's a plug, we're hiring. So it's, and then reached out, and I had to collaborate because I certainly didn't have the answers, and I absolutely appreciate all the heads that came together to sit down and strategize and say, okay, this is how we should be doing this. And it started to getting much deeper and deeper and deeper. And Ron and I would sit down and talk about job fairs at colleges and community colleges around the area. So we would go down together, mainly for money. I mean, a lot of this is costs a lot of money, and we were in unknown territory. So we kind of like worked together, and then we would come back with our trials and tribulations and dump them at the table of the committee, of the workforce committee, and together they would sit down and say, okay, have you tried this? Have you tried that? How about this? And we would go out and try it again. And since 2014, we have done a double prong effect down at the department, where we have worked on the education side of it to work with our officers. Because to have a diverse, you have to have a welcoming department. And we came up with diversity mission statements, if you will, instead of police department mission statements. They were broken down into 3 sections. It was 3 categories: the workforce, the workplace, and the community. And the community aspect is how the law enforcement deals with the community. And we sat down, and we're still working in the drafts on our mission statements for how we are addressing diversity in those 3 categories. And it's been a very, very rewarding experience, very educational experience. And we're really starting to bear fruit, and we're coming a long way in 3 years. Now, mind you, we have a long way to go. I'm not saying we're there yet by no stretch of the imagination, but I really want to relay to the board and to the community that this has been addressed for years, and we're going to continue to address it. And it's encouraging. It's really encouraging on the steps that we are taking and the results that we're getting.
So Chief Fitzgerald is giving you a sense, a perspective of a member of the committee of how it's been of use. And as we started, and as Ron and the chief put their heads together, we thought, who should be at the table? Who would be real partners in moving this forward and expanding the learning that takes place at the committee? And basically the decision was made that it was an aim to get the largest employers in our community at the table. And interestingly enough, we found that they all were in their own bubbles experiencing the same quandary, and were very excited about the opportunity to get together. So I'm just going to read you a brief summary of the people who are working with us on the committee. They include the Brattleboro Retreat, HCRS, SIT, and World Learning, and then United Way, the school district, the Wyndham Regional Commission has really come on board. And with all of that, the Vermont Partnership has been a guide and has really helped us think about concrete actions that we can move towards that make us feel like we're not always up in the clouds in terms of these topics. And in particular, an action that we have worked on and financed in the past year has been Curtis's IamAvermonter.com website. And this is really focusing on the area of recruitment and really portraying our community in an honest way, not just as an advertisement. There are 11, am I right, people of color who are living in our community who are profiled on this site that was originated in Chittenden County, but we are now the southeastern extension of that, and eventually we hope it'll be a statewide website. So that's an action that we have taken. As the chief said, we each, and this was encouraged by SIT, Ann Bringer, the HR director at SIT, brought to us, it's a corporate model for diversity strategizing that's called CEB. We found it really inspiring, probably not perfect, but as the chief said, it invites each member to develop a statement that they will bring to their trustees, to their board, to their staff, to work with that focuses on diversity and its related issues in the workplace. And as he said, there are 3 levels. So I really like that it's 3-dimensional, the way in which we're approaching this work, in that it's looking at recruitment, but it's also looking at the culture, the inclusive culture in the workplace regarding retention issues. And finally, it's looking at all of us in the community and whether or not we are making a welcoming effort to new families coming to our community who might have very special interests, whether it's religion, whether it's shopping, whether it's social life, that we want to expand to embrace. So we've used that as a guide that each of our, it's kind of a task we have at each meeting that at least one of us will bring a statement that we've been working on, get feedback, and then bring it to the next draft. But we also, besides working one-to-one in that manner, are working on the population level, and that's where the United Way membership has been particularly helpful. They, as you might know, work in collaboration with the Wyndham Regional Commission to provide indicators on community well-being that support their efforts and their investments. And they were good enough through their membership in our work to have Susan McMahon at the Wyndham Regional Commission now monitor a diversity, let me get the exact working. It's a diversity strategy, just a second. Diversity in the workplace in Wyndham County report on who of color is working in workplaces in Wyndham County. And we will now be part of the United Way's report under their prosperity area, which will show us annually how different races in our community are employed and whether that's a change from previous years, previous census, whatever. So we have a population level that we kind of are learning about this issue with, but we also have each of our members that are doing their individual work and are educating each other in the committee. I would like now, though, to particularly turn it over to the co-facilitator of our work, and that's Alex Beck, because the BDCC has been a real partner in thinking about the future of this committee's work. We meet here in the town office, the town offices, and as the collaborative does. But we are affiliated, of course, with our founding collaborative. But in a way, we're floating out here. And the BDCC is really thinking with us about a future home for this work and making sure that our efforts to date are incorporated into their economic planning. And I'd just like Alex to briefly tell you a bit about what the future might hold and some of the more concrete ideas he has for the future steps we might take.
Sure, I'd love to. But first, Chris, do you want to add anything about I'm a Vermonter? Because that is happening now. We'll be going to the chamber soon, so either history or what comes with it.
Why don't I go at the end?
Sure.
Okay, because I have other comments directed to
I thought you might. Right, yeah.
To the select board, so I'd rather.
Yeah. Great.
I'll follow you.
Thanks. So do I need a microphone? Should I just speak loudly?
There's a lot of people watching.
Sure.
You don't have to get it too close. You just slide to the end of the table.
Okay.
It picks it up.
All right. So my role at the BDCC is to really understand and evaluate our workforce and education training programs that are available throughout the county. That includes recruitment, it includes retention, and of course cultivation or the education of people. I do appreciate equal opportunity, but equal outcome is what makes a program successful or meaningful. And so one of our philosophies is we know that there's a shortage of people in our community, in our state, in our county. If every single high school graduate and college graduate went to work in Wyndham County tomorrow from Wyndham County, we still wouldn't have enough people to fill all the jobs that we have. And this includes those people on Social Security, disability. So the need to bring more people into our economy is definitely one priority that we have. And what we've been working with both individual employers on and as a group is ensuring traditional outreach and recruitment efforts are inclusive, how we have traditionally targeted and diverse populations, assumptions we make. There is an assumption that only Caucasian people enjoy winter sports, and so when you see advertisements for those for our tourism industry here, it is not a diverse marketing effort. And yet we know that 20% of people who come here for leisure activities, who ended up moving here, cited those leisure activities as why they found this place welcoming. So part of it is really challenging the narrative that we're putting forward as to who succeeds here, but then also really looking that are all of our workplaces reflecting of our community, not just the town. So in terms of programs that we are looking forward to working on with this group is really extending what we know works is our internship program is used as a retention tool to both bring students into our economy and community. So we're hoping to engage better, our group, to engage better with historical Black colleges and universities, to say that, you know, we are welcome, we are open, and we need talent. We need people who are capable of doing these jobs. And that has really no little bearing on their background, who they are, how they identify. And so that's something that we're really looking forward to pursuing. And again, with the hospitality and tourism comment I made earlier, are we really targeting, who are we targeting with our tourism industry? What affinity groups do we lean towards, whether it's for conferences, deals, who we're throwing our big festivals for in terms of who's on those steering committees, who's generating those kinds of events. So these are all, you know, both community oriented, but really at the end of the day, if someone doesn't have access to a livable wage, we cannot expect them to want to live in our community. And so while both class and race, there is a lot of intersection. There are other people who don't acknowledge that. But we need to both look at those separately and together. And so that's where we hope to, it's nothing too innovative. It's how is our current internship program and our current relationships with higher education institutions in Windham County, how can we expand those and deepen those to more diverse populations? And through doing that with this group, I do not have the time to do all of this on my own. And so in terms of this group and their mission, it's much more of a lens at which I'm able to approach the work that we do at the BDCC, and of course, the vice versa, the real economic argument for diversity. And anyone who doesn't know where the diversity is right now in our communities, H1A, H2A, our apple pickers, our berry pickers, if you look at the data, we have a higher in-migration of Hispanics than any other population. In fact, it is diverse populations that is the only reason why Windham County's population is growing. So when everyone says our population is declining, they are only referring to the people who they recognize as their own community members. So if we have a more inclusive and holistic view of who our community members are, we could be proud of saying our community is growing, our population is growing. Can we better work harder to transition our seasonal workers to full-time employees in different employers or upward mobility within those organizations? I think those are things that we'll be addressing and trying to balance, but it is absolutely reliant upon bringing more people in general to our community and ensuring that how we do that is inclusive, but also empowering the existing opportunities to be inclusive and actually, again, equity of outcome is what I think are, you know, why I was brought in to look at putting that through the lens. Yeah.
So we've been meeting since July 2 years ago, and I feel like we've made some really good progress. And I think that's a basic update on our work, but I'd like Curtis to comment a little more about I Am a Vermonter and then any other additions.
Great. You know, as we look at our demographics around the state, you know, 18% of us are 65 and older. We have the lowest birth rate in the nation. We have the second highest median age in the nation. We have 12 out of 14 counties, including Windham County, had negative population growth amongst whites between the ages of 18 and 34. And we need globally about 11,000 skilled workers just to maintain the state's economy. That's not to grow it, but that's just to maintain where we are today. And the model that the state has used has historically been, let's target white heterosexual males with family incomes of $120,000 or more. And that's where our marketing dollars went up and down the eastern seaboard. The country's changing. Demographics are changing. In 2040, 2042, we'll become a minority-majority nation. Our surrounding workforce, in terms of urban areas, have already made that transition. So as we look for, as we look to grow our workforce, we need to go where the demographics are also growing. Oftentimes I go to schools and the demographics of the school is changing, but the principal says, we just can't get families of color involved in what's happening in our school. And I asked them, well, who's Cookie Lady? He said, Cookie Lady, yeah, the woman who goes out and gets everyone to bake cookies. And so I asked the Cookie Lady, who do you ask? And the Cookie Lady asked all white families to bake cookies. I said, well, where do you get your cookie list? Oh, well, I inherited from the last Cookie Lady, who inherited from the last Cookie Lady. And so the suggestion of, well, why not ask those new families to bake cookies? As one small step for getting people involved in the school. The same thing is sort of apparent in municipal government around the state, where you're drawing from a pool which historically has been all white. If you want to diversify and to be more inclusive in terms of your recruiting, then you need to also reallocate your resources so that you're dipping your fishing line into different pools. And that is not, at least in my mind's eye, a function of giving priority to one group or another. Recently, City of Burlington they have a new police chief, about a little over a year now. But that recruiting process, 8 of the 20 that made the first cut were ethnic racial minorities who were law enforcement professionals. The final cut, 3 out of the 4 were 2 Cuban Americans, 1 African American, and some guy from the Northeast Kingdom. It cost them 1/3 of what it would have normally cost them to advertise for a police chief. But they had higher quality, they had more applicants of color, simply by recognizing the fact that not everyone reads the Reformer or the Free Press or the traditional media where jobs are going out to, or job announcements are going to. And it's really a question of where do values translate into action? And the action is, working with your HR department in understanding the marketplace of ethnic racial minorities as it relates to the kinds of positions that you're looking for, and targeting your efforts at, including those in your toolkit as you're recruiting. One of the things that we've also discovered is that candidates of color who are unfamiliar with the state of Vermont have disconcerting interviews with interview committees and hiring directors. Because at some point, the conversation shifts from you've got a great set of qualities. We need those qualities for this job. But you're not just hiring someone to do that job. You're looking for someone who's looking for a community. And the moment the question is asked, well, what's it going to be like for my family here? The HR director, the interview committee gets this deer in the headlight look like, you want me to talk about race? And, well, yes, the candidate wants to know, what will it be like for my family here? So about 3 years ago, we worked in Champlain Valley to create IamAVermonter.org. And there are probably about 25 testimonials of folks of color, from students to retirees, that really speak to their experience in Vermont. The success of that in terms of HR directors feeling as though that they had a valve in which to, direct people to. We decided that we were going to take that concept statewide. And southeastern Vermont, we just launched about 3 weeks ago with the idea that we're moving to southwest Vermont, central and northeast kingdom next. There's sections on the site in terms of culture, in terms of kind of the full array of venues that offer multicultural events, whether it's the Michael Jackson review band played at the Barry Opera House last year, if you're into Michael Jackson. Fences has been here, Black Angels of Tuskegee, Stomp, that we're trying to cultivate a sense of, if you're a person of color, you want to come to Vermont, you can't be a couch potato. You really need to get out. You need to go to the Vermont Jazz Center. You need to go to the Asian Cultural Center of Vermont. You need to, and these are all sort of local places that we're using to draw people into the state, so that they can say, Vermont might be the whitest state in the nation or the second whitest state in the nation, but that's not intentional. With the Department of Tourism, we created the Vermont African American Heritage Trail as a hook into the multicultural marketplace that says there's a reason to come to Vermont. African Americans in 2015, had a buying income or a buying purchasing power of $1.3 trillion. And out of that $1.3 trillion, $87 billion was spent on travel and leisure. Our best estimate is that maybe $10 to $15 million found its way into Vermont. For no other reason that Vermont nor chambers are marketing their destinations to families of color, to potential convention, to organizations, professional associations, or organizations looking for a destination to hold a conference, outdoor enthusiasts of color of every stripe, whether they're hunters. 2 years ago, the guy who bagged the largest, an 8-point stag was African American up in the Northeast Kingdom. Well, we need to be promoting, his accomplishment into the broader network of African American Hispanic hunters. So that's a long way of saying, if you want to strengthen our local workforce, you cannot rely exclusively on a white demographic in order for that to happen. But it requires behavioral change at the HR level and with our business community to say, the door's open, our borders are open, and there's great things to do and see and hear. So that's what we do. And it's sort of embarrassing for me as I travel around the state and people say, well, you're doing great work in Rutland or great work in Burlington or, but what's happening in Brattleboro in real practical terms? And, with the exception of what the chief is doing, what Gunny's doing in terms of sort of a short-term, medium-term, long-term strategy around recruiting, there's not a whole lot happening here. And there's a great potential for it to be, a thriving community of folks of diverse backgrounds.
And one thing I want to add that I totally agree on is that, especially with affirmative hiring practices, there are people of color applying to jobs who are choosing not to take them because of the lack of diversity in the community. Mm-hmm. And there are many jobs that no one is applying to at all.
Right.
So in terms of affirmative hiring policies, while that is a tool in some regards, I think that it's probably not the best tool for our community because there aren't applicants to prioritize over others. It's again, employers that the VDCC has been working with have said people are living in Northampton. They're commuting and talk about environmental racism, environmental justice, and the impact of that on commuting distances, where you can live, where you can afford to live, and all of those layers that there's a lot more work to be done in the culture and in the recruitment before we may need to worry about affirmative hiring policies. Not to take that off the table, but let's wait until we have enough people of color actually applying for jobs who want to be here and want to work here, and then really look at whether or not they're discriminated against. Because I don't think there is enough empirical data to say that they're discriminated against in the hiring process, because no one particularly wants to work here right now. And so that's just something that, in terms of how I think, prioritizing, again, what Curtis said is we need to be bringing more people into the economy, even if it's just the front door, well before it's useful to look at some of those legal policies.
So I just like to offer, Julie Cunningham is here she's not a member of our diverse workforce committee, but certainly supported its creation. And as a member of the larger collaborative, I feel like you are really a person who has been focusing on that community need. I didn't know if you might have a couple of comments, and I don't know if our time is getting short.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I know we've taken a lot of time, and I don't know if there's questions or anything, but the why of how the Community Equity Collaborative started was, as Diana said, there was a very disturbing racial event. There was a hate group at the high school that was formed by students, and they called themselves the N-word hanging.
Redneck.
Redneck.
The
I don't want to say
Redneck Hanging
can,
Association.
I'm boycotting the word after Bill Mayer the other night, but and so we came together, and it's really been a great committee in that we've had the chief of police, we've had the superintendent of school, we've had clergy, we've had nonprofit leaders, and we really tried to look at systemically how is racism impacting our community? And we have a lofty goal. Our goal is to make Brattleboro free of racism and discrimination of all kinds. We have not accomplished that, but I have a dream. And one of the exciting things that's happened this year that Curtis has been way out in front in the State House is really getting more training systemically around unconscious bias and how that plays out for all of us in communities. And Senator Becker Balint is going to be bringing some training to the State House to legislators. And I just want to put a plug. I think if there's some way the select board can go through that training, and so that we're really looking at this from every single angle. We all need to get on the same page, and I think that's been part of the problem. We just have not been on the same page. So that's my little shout out.
And I would encourage you to contact your counterparts in Burlington City Council. We've done multiple trainings with them. As we also work with their senior leadership and department heads. I think there are opportunities here that they're low-hanging fruit. So.
Did you have any closing thoughts, Chief?
No, I think everything was very well said.
Great, thank you. I want to say thank you.
And one last thing, as we're all giving feedback, I believe our doors are open for our committee. So if you're interested in providing input or joining,
well, we're aiming for large employers to plan together, and so any link you can. The hospital has expressed interest in joining more actively, and any links you have for us in that regard would be great.
or if you're willing to donate a significant amount of your time to help us implement our initiatives, I think that that's also something we might be interested in. So as you all get into what you're doing, if there's anything that you want to participate in that we're engaged in, that door is open.
Great. I want to say thank you all for being here. Sometimes things go on in the community that no one knows that they're happening, and I think many people probably in this room or watching on TV had no idea that you folks had a group and you've been meeting since 2014. 15. So thank you for educating all of us tonight on everything you've said, but just the fact that you are doing something and that you exist, I think is wonderful. I think what we'll do is, just so everybody in the audience knows what my envisioning this conversation is, the select board will have a conversation, maybe ask questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So it's not going to be just us talking, we'll open it up to you as well. Because I think what we have to do tonight, this might be just the first of a number of discussions we have. What do we want to do? Do we want to have some written policy statement? Do we want to, we've got a great example with the chief at the police department. He can help us educate other departments. I think those are the questions, where do we want to end up in the long run, and where do we want to end up this evening? I think if that's where the conversation, I think, we should have. Before we start, I do want to say the one takeaway from what I got from what the town manager said, as well as what you folks said, is that the community is only as good as the people who live here. So it's not just, we got to get the right town employees. We can't get the right town employees until we get the people that we want in our community to come and live here. So I am under no illusion myself that whatever we do as a select board is going to solve the problem. We're a piece of helping to solve the problem or the challenges that we have, but we're not going to fix it on our own. So saying that, what are people thinking? What are your first thoughts, or do you have any questions for these folks? I think one of the things too that we've heard from our town manager and our town attorney is that putting something in writing might be very difficult if we're doing one specific thing. So
may I just clarify that? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make clear that we're not cautioning against putting something in writing that would state our objectives or the values that we're committed to living and then fulfilling. The state has such a policy, and we could either borrow from that or do something that's more Brattleboro specific that feels like the right way to commit ourselves to a longer term approach. What we are urging great caution about is the creation of an actual affirmative action preference program, which would require some special legal advice and we believe could, if we're not very careful, run afoul in attempting to do good in one area, we could end up running afoul of the law and inadvertently discriminating against others.
Right. We're going to have,
Might I suggest that maybe the people in this room could inform the conversation that's happening here? Because I think this is inherently delimiting.
yeah, well, we're going
This is a
to,
conversation among white people. And people in the room need to have an opportunity to inform and to respond to the statements that are being made. So
Yeah, we're
could
gonna-
I ask for you to allow people to speak?
we are. What I'm just trying to do is set the table on what, as a select board, we might think we're trying to do here. So then we want to
But
talk
I
to you.
think that would inform.
No, I mean procedurally. I'm just trying to figure out, we've had the discussion. We're gonna come to you in just a second.
Not me.
But, well, come to everybody else. So I think the question that when we have this discussion tonight is, where do we want to end up tonight and where do we want to end up overall? That's what I was sort of going for with, what we're thinking, if that makes sense with everybody.
I don't think we have an agenda up here. I think we can just proceed with some conversation and see how much energy we have. We definitely have a limited amount of time, but my only request is if these guys could stay for the conversation for now, if you can.
Yes.
Because I think it'll be more rich if we're all involved.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear from the public.
Yep. All right, David, basically, we're gonna have an open discussion. We haven't decided if we're gonna do something tonight.
Right.
Whatever. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
Okay, what I would ask is that, if you wanna speak, when you do, if you could state your name and where you're from, because we need that for the official record, and it also helps us know who you are. So does anyone in the public wish to say anything? Yes, come up to the mic, and the mic, I think everybody's heard this, but the mic is for the TV, so you're not gonna hear your voice amplified, but everybody in the TV will hear you.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and actually I'm from Newfane, but I work in Brattleboro and I run a festival in Brattleboro. But I wanted to say something, because when we say the community is only as good as the people that live here, I just want to also just say, from my own experience in the conversation I was having with Sheila the other day, actually, one of the reasons I don't apply for jobs is because I don't feel like I'm going to get hired for those jobs. So there's also some work to be done there. Even though I have a vast amount of experience, I do feel like it generally goes to the gray-haired man when I have applied. And
Watch it.
So I feel like it is really important that we do some, because I just don't believe that we don't have people of color that could be applying for some of these jobs and getting them. And I don't believe that we don't have people in poverty who could be applying for these jobs, and women and single moms and I just don't believe that. I believe that they do exist in our community to some extent, and we're sitting in the background saying, or perhaps Sheila doesn't really sit in the background, but people are sitting in the background saying, like, I'm never going to get that job. It's not worth my time to apply. So I do think that the marketing aspect to people who may not be the traditional applicants is really important. So that's what I say. Now I'll be quiet.
Would anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Esler, and I am with the Root Social Justice Center, and I was earlier over there filming. First, I would like to tell you that I'm very happy that I have moved here from Texas. It's been a really welcoming place. And I moved from a place where they just passed really racist laws, the SB 4 in Texas. So we have to become aware that all over the country there's a lot of unrest, and a lot of people are feeling scared. And we need to, I feel like perhaps as a town we should invite people from all over the place, that this is a safe place to come, that this is a place to raise a family. So I wonder how we can, in the future, keep evolving with that idea, that this is a safe community, because this is how it feels to me. And I want this feeling that I have when I moved here for other people. And I am so happy that we're having this conversation, and I just can't wait to hear all the stuff that people are going to say. And yeah, let's just keep moving forward, because that's the only way that we have to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your comment, and I just wanted to make a note of clarification. When I said we're, in this particular rendition of our committee, looking for large employers, the only reason we say that is we're thinking about working as a group that's workable in size. And if we have maybe 10 to 15 employers, we figure around the table we can make some progress. That doesn't mean this model can't be replicated with middle-sized employers or small employers or whatever. But that's the only reason I said that when I responded to Alex's comment, is we certainly would be very excited about more than one committee that embraces this kind of work. And the other comment I want to make is I really want to thank Sheila Linton for bringing the People's Institute to our community. And it never touches enough people, that type of training, but the work that you have put into bringing training to our community, I think, has certainly helped me in engaging in a productive way, in a scary but a really useful way in this topic. So I hope that People's Institute and other similar capable trainers can continue to serve us. So.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Curtis.
She'll go, then I'll.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Annalise Wagner. I've been a resident of Brattleboro since 2014. I want to echo a lot of what has already been said around kind of the risks and vulnerability of bringing this question and this topic to the forefront, but accentuate the importance of this. I have a question that isn't meant to be answered now, but could potentially be a part of the discussion that you're about to have, of thinking about as the select board and kind of the way you are now in having a discussion around these recommendations and the changes that might be made. How will you hold yourselves accountable to really looking at what's being inclusive and successful, in recognizing without the lack of perspectives here? How can you move forward and really assess the changes that you might make? And what kind of voices can be included in a position of power in order to really make those assessments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. A partial answer to that question is that in Burlington, the City Council has a permanent standing committee focused on diversity and equity. There's a strategic plan for diversity and equity for the City of Burlington, and City Council want to make sure that regardless of who sits on the chairs, that there is a permanent committee that is looking, is doing the oversight of the implementation of that plan. My other comments are really about long-term, the sort of short-term, immediate, medium-term, and long-term strategies. And as we look at 30 years from now, if we end up with the climate of Georgia, then, and if we're looking at sort of green economy being sort of the driving force or to replace revenue that might be lost from tourism, that now is the time to plant the flag in graduate programs in STEM technologies in historically black colleges and universities. I think most of the graduate programs within 8 hours of here have anywhere from 30 to 40% of their graduate students are folks of color. To invite, to work on a strategy that would invite them to Vermont, because if their experience exceeds their expectations, some of them will decide to come back or may decide to stay. The other sort of data point for you to be aware of is that for every 100 white adults in the state of Vermont, 14 are job creators. They own businesses that hire people. If you take 100 people of color, 100 adults, 23% are job creators that hire people. So if you want to jumpstart your local economy, where do you want to go? Who do you want to seek out? And who do you want to invite into your community? Just purely in terms of job creation. Obviously the raw numbers are skewed because, there's so many more, whites in the population. But that trend, we're trending that, more folks of color are coming into the state and staying. So why not, focus our attention on young entrepreneurs of color to, stake a claim in Windham County.
Thank you. Does anyone else I just want to make sure the public, I love you guys, but I just want to get that. Does anyone else in the public have any questions or comments? Yes, please come up.
Hi, my name is Kate Casas. Excuse my previous outburst, but I really thought that was important for people to have an opportunity to be heard as you consider what your next steps are going to be. I do want to congratulate you on having this conversation. I think it might be very late in the game. I used to live in Brattleboro about 10 years ago, and preceding the really disturbing incident at the high school have been some other very disturbing and racist things that have happened in this community. And so for the select board to still be a board of all white people, for us to get statements like this that come explicitly from all white people is in itself very limiting. And so I think it's really important to acknowledge that this comes from a very limited perspective. And there has to be an intentional effort to reach out and broaden the legal opinions, to broaden the idea of what affirmative action is, to look at an affirmative, to look at a diversity and inclusion statement for the town, and to commit to steps that are going to take us forward in a way that's moving faster than we've been moving, because the status quo is not acceptable. We are a white state. We are an aging state. We need people who come and bring ideas and diversity and economic and cultural breadth. And we don't have that here. And so, it's one thing to say that you're hiring kids at the local pool in the summer, but where is the model for those kids in the police department, at the town, on the town level? Where's the model for them to see that they have an opportunity to move and do something and be something in this community? That's incumbent upon you guys. And the time is now. It's not way down the road. The time was a long time ago, actually. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to say something?
Great. Okay. So most of you know who I am. I'm Sheila Linton, and I'm from Brattleboro, and I'm a part of the Root Social Justice Center. Just want to say thank you for the shout out a couple of select board meetings ago. I heard my name. I was watching you all, so thank you for that acknowledgement. So I'm here because you all called, and so I decided to show up. So it's sort of like the Batmobile thing, and so I'm here. I kind of organized my thoughts, but there's a lot of discussion going on. I don't want to belabor the conversation. There's been a great conversation going on. I echo a lot of what's going on in here, what's been said in the audience. And so I will just talk about what I know, and that's my experience. So Esler spoke before about his experience living here in Brattleboro, and I got the great opportunity to be sitting in the car with Esler about a month and a half ago. We were on our way to do a gig, and he was going on about how wonderful Brattleboro is and how much he enjoys being here and how welcoming the community is, and just great. I mean, you heard him speak, right? And I was next to him crying in the seat, because that's my experience. What I realized after we did our gig and we got back in the car, and I said, wow, that was so profound. I don't know why I'm so emotional about what you have said, and that I don't have that same experience. Sorry, I'm gonna get emotional because it's emotional. And what I realized is that one of the reasons why my experience may be different than his experiences is because of the work of many in this community. I've done the things that you have heard that are being done. with all the committees, with all the organizations, with all the people coming up and owning their white privilege, understanding the white supremacist society we live, forming organizations, committees, and actions that actually support people of color and shift resources into communities of color and actually visibilize people of color. That is why people like Esler can come here to our community and feel welcomed. That is why I might stay in this community. But I struggle every day to stay in this community for a variety of different reasons. But what it all boils down to is about the racism that I endure, whether implicit or not, whether unconsciously or not, whether intentionally or not, whether individually or institutionalized, I experience it every single day of my life. And it is not a welcoming community for me. It is not somewhere where I was born and raised here in this town. I've been here my entire life, have 2 children and now a grandmother. I have done this, and I still don't feel like this is really my community. I still don't feel welcomed. I still don't feel safe. And if I can remind you all that I was assaulted in a hate crime just this summer here in our downtown community. Those are my experiences. So then when we relate it to the select board, I relate my experiences very similar as a school board, where anybody who was there during this time knows the controversy of what happened when I was trying to get on the school board. 9 months it took me to get on that school board. 9 months. Now, I'm not saying that was because of the color of my skin, or that I was young, or that I was a woman. I don't know what that was about. But I can assure you I was not welcomed, no matter what the issue was about. And I can assure you, while I was on that board, for those who came after, for those who were during, you know I was not treated well. Internally. So for us to think that just by policies or just by a wink of an eye, that somehow people of color are going to want to work in a place where, again, everybody has said they don't see themselves, where it's not necessarily welcoming, where microaggressions happen on a daily by minute basis. How are we supposed to have faith in that system? So the system is broken, but it's actually working for those who it's intended to work for. And unfortunately, those people are generally white folks. And I am not one of those people. And I am part of this community. And I want to be seen, and I want to be valued. And I don't want to feel safe. I want to actually be safe in my community. That's what I really want. So I run a program at the Root called Youth for Change. And this group just talked about how we are having the mirror conversation in our youth activist group about this current school system. I have kids in that group that come from independent, public, homeschool, it doesn't matter, every single education system you can imagine. And every single one of them has said, we do not have any leaders, any teachers, any administrations. There is not a single person of color except for, oh, wait a minute. When I go get my lunch, I see the lady who serves me my food. She's black. Oh, wait a minute. There's that guy who sweeps our floors and mops our floors. He's Latino. That is their leaders in this community. And like many people said here, where are our mentors? We have plenty of mentors, and we have some of these mentors right here in this room right now. But they are not given the same opportunity outcome. And I like that phrase, so thank you. We want the same outcomes, and they're just not happening. So Kate, thank you for summarizing the legal aspect. Because I read this report, and no disrespect to Mr. Fisher, but is a perspective of a legal analysis. One perspective, one interpretation. And I feel as though this interpretation, based on what I've read in the documents provided today, instills fear, instills hatred, instills division. If you read that, it almost sounds like what I've been being told is, but doesn't all lives matter, Sheila? Don't they, right? You all want to say that, right? That's what that statement sounds like, what that interpretation sounds like. It sounds like you're using the law to divide what the real conversation is about. It sounds like we're trying to use the law to confuse people, and it sounds like we're trying to use a law to build fear and not moving forward with what really needs to be done here today. So I want to again reaffirm that I've been having this, I'm saying that a friend's been telling to me for many, many years, that just because you can do something does not mean you should. And just because you think you can't do something doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So I'm going to invite you to really try. And in that inviting, I'm going to invite you not to look at this as a policy. You began this, Mr. Elwell, I believe you began this opening session about values. You had stated something around values, and I encourage you to go back to that, because this will show your community what your values are, depending on what you choose to do. This isn't about an affirmative action law. This isn't about the legalese. This isn't about all this. This is about our values as a community and how we want our community to be. You do not have the policy or a law to create the values that you want to see. And you have perfect examples of people who are in the work and doing the work to help you and support you. And you have a community here of resources to support you in doing that. And to not allow the nuances of what you think is just going through the process of legalities and all this stuff trip you up with what the values of our community is supposed to be. So I will end it on this, that I'm looking for a job. So please hire me, or, I'm saying if not qualified, but I will be applying for some maybe town government jobs as well as any other jobs out there, so anybody who wants. So, but for real, you need a diversity consultant, you need somebody, I am for hire with pay. So, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi. My name is Gia Neswald. I live and work in Brattleboro. My 16-year-old son attends the high school. He identifies as a black male. And we moved to we moved to Vermont from Brooklyn in 2008. Part of this is reiterating what people have said, which is that the world is changing demographically, and Vermont is way behind that. An aging population. We need young people to vitalize and continue to keep Brattleboro alive. And my son is going to be in the workforce very, very soon. He needs to see role models in order to even consider that there is a future for him here in Brattleboro. So there's no time to lose whatsoever if we're going to have our young, changing population participate in this economy and this culture. And my second point is that I agree that in looking over the documents that were provided in that packet, that it feels anxious. I understand change has to be carefully considered, but because the time is so ripe or past due, I just ask the select board, all of you, to search your hearts, really, and search and probe the community and ask, is change really what we want? And that might be a good place to start. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I'm Jim Levinson. Diana Wally and I are members of the Citizen Follow-Up Committee to the Compassion Resolution, which you passed last month. This is a difficult and complex situation, but I would think, as Kate said, that there's value in appreciating the importance of the town select board simply having this conversation. To put this in perspective, I want to second what Esler said a moment ago about the broader problem in our country. I think of Dubuque, Iowa, where the all-white city management resolved 90% of all African American applications to Section 8 by simply eliminating the applications. No voucher provision, no waiting list, just toss them in the wastebasket. Or another Midwestern city where the all-white management remained silent, while property management companies simply stopped communicating with any family once they knew that they were part of Section 8. How many town select boards anywhere in this country would have a member who could articulate as cogently as one of you did last month when you described the reality of what's happening to African Americans over our history, a history so jam-packed with injustice that African American families can't pull themselves up by their bootstraps because they don't have bootstraps. A history which has deprived them of the training, the support, the structures that would line them up for town management positions. Seems to me if there's a town anywhere, a select board anywhere, in a position to make that extra necessary effort, reflected in part in Peter's recommendations, in the diverse workforce committee's clearly three-dimensional work, in Chief Fitzgerald's commitment in the I am a Vermonter approach. If there's any town, any select board anywhere in a position to make that extra necessary effort to integrate its town management, to shift the approach of the cookie ladies, to get to the point where Sheila can talk about this subject and be able to tell a different set of stories, a happier set of stories, to set a real example for our kids and our grandkids, it's the one here in Brattleboro.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the public?
I'm Orion Barber. I'm a town meeting member from District 1. Just wanted to remind everybody that town meeting has at least one person of color who ran courageously for election and was elected. There may be another one, and I confess my ignorance. I thought there was somebody toward the back of the hall who looked to me like a person of color and who was a member of the meeting. I don't know who that person is. And I'm going to take the opportunity to ask the board and the town to think very hard about how town meeting is physically arranged. I agree with Brandy that it's going to help if we can face each other. We have this center aisle. I don't see any reason why the chairs on either side can't face the center aisle. I don't agree with Kurt's annual idea of taking the people we love to shoot at down off the stage where we can't see them or hear them. We want them right up there in our sights. I'm just here as an old white guy swimming in the ocean of white privilege that I'm only beginning to understand. You know, fish swim in the water, and it's where they live, and they don't know what water is. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any more comments from the public?
Can I quickly just formally submit a letter from Ellen Shorts, who's a resident
Oh, sure.
of Brattleboro since
Please do.
1976. I'm not the best reader. Someone else wants to volunteer.
Oh, whoever wants to read it.
You can
go
read it.
ahead.
Anybody can read it.
Sheila, go ahead.
Okay, hopefully I won't mispronounce words in it. Okay, so it says to the Brattleboro Select Board, and this is from Ellen Swartz, which is a Brattleboro resident. Unfortunately, I'm not able to attend tonight's meeting due to a prior commitment. However, as a Brattleboro resident since 1976, I would like to express my thoughts about diversification of town staff. I am really heartened that the Select Board is taking up this issue. I was especially encouraged by David Scholl's comments at a prior Select Board meeting, and Brandy Starr and Peter Elwell's suggestion that the town needs to cast a wide net in recruiting applicants for the municipal positions. Because Brattleboro is a majority white town in a majority white state, that action is crucial. We can't just assume that people of color will think of applying for town jobs, that it is true of local people who may assume that they aren't welcomed in this town government, as it is of people from other areas who would consider relocating to Brattleboro for work. Brattleboro has a legacy to undo. It isn't ours alone. Institutionalized racism is endemic in our state, in our country, and beyond. But in our little part of the world, we can begin to dismantle that deeply embedded institution by taking active steps to bring more racial diversity to our municipal staff. I do not think that this is about quotas, nor should it be taken as tokenism. Rather, by taking steps to address racial diversity in our own town staff, the Select Board acknowledges that there are societal systems in place that have led to the unduly white staff that commits to remedying the situation. Thank you for addressing this topic head on, and I look forward to seeing Brattleboro's progress in developing a town workforce that more truly reflects the racial diversity of our community. Again, sincerely, Ellen Swartz, and I can say that she identifies as a white woman.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to contribute to the conversation? Great. Is it going to be quick, Alex?
Very
Great.
quick. One thing that wasn't mentioned, it was almost mentioned, patronage of businesses owned by and run by minorities is incredibly important. Valuing them does not help them keep their doors open and does not help them offer livable wages or provide them a livable wage. So next time a business closes downtown, you say, oh, if only they had made it. The question you need to ask yourself is, when was the last time I gave my hard-earned money to them? None of us have a lot to go around, but it's still important to do that. And lastly, right now, a lot of environmental development, there is a lot of environmental racism and injustice in Vermont, but because it is along class issues rather than race, because we aren't a diverse enough state for it to be visible, our wind farms are on the cheapest land. And if we want wind, we should be able to put it where it belongs, not in the poorest people's backyards. And so as and Curtis was 100% correct that we need to invest in the green economy, but being really aware of what we've taken for granted as green Vermonters, the impact that will have. So it's much less of anyone in the environment coming and joining our group and making sure those doing that already are inclusive to all.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming and for all that you had to say. I think it was helpful and informative and thought-provoking. There are a couple of things. A lot of the things that were said tonight, the Select Board can't have direct influence. We can't make an employer hire a person of color, hire a woman. We can't do that. But to me, I'm speaking just for myself, and people can disagree with me, there are a couple of things we can do as a Select Board. One, we can work on the town hiring practices. And although we can't make an employer hire someone, we could, as a town, create or put together a message or a policy statement on what we think our town should be like. So we make a broader statement that would encourage other employers to sort of take the lead for whatever the town, follow our lead in some kind of policy statement. that's how, I think we can move forward on this. I don't know if, how the other members of the board feel, whether, if I'm looking at it the right way. We have our own town policy, hiring policy, as well as a policy statement on behalf of the larger community. I do want to say one thing, and I'm saying this as, I think we have to look at diversity a little larger. And I say this, and I don't mean to put the two chiefs on the spot, but there are no women firefighters, and there are how many women police officers?
Two,
I don't want to put
one
you,
in training.
right, I don't want to put you on the spot, but in some areas, we have a woman problem as well, so,
Maybe rephrase that.
Yeah. And I was really glad that Brandy joined the cause, because it used to be, we had a bigger woman problem here. So, yeah. So I think, to me, we have to, the definition of diversity, we just sort of have to think of that, because we want to make sure that we're bringing in all the other aspects of diversity as a again, a woman problem is not right, but you know what I'm saying. Oh yeah. Yeah, because we can't hear it if you don't.
I want to acknowledge, as someone that is queer, as someone that has been raised thinking I'm a woman, as someone that identifies as genderqueer, that I think there is this is not about you, but that comment around how do we bring diversity to be focused on gender and class and other issues, I think is a way of often whitewashing the issue of race. And I know that's
not what I mean
I
at
know that's
all.
not your intention, but what I'm about to say is that historically in our country, the issue of race has been the most dehumanizing issue, the most economically disadvantaged folks. And so when we're looking at diversity, looking at race as the prominent issue is gonna raise diversity across lines and across categories. And so I'm not saying you're incorrect, it's not about you, but that is, I think, often a statement that gets said specifically when talking about racism in the context of diversity. And so as a white person that is diverse in other ways, I would still personally like to say that commitment to racial justice is actually a foundation towards other forms of diversity. And sorry, to finish, that the reason, the major movement in our country right now is around Black Lives Matter, and the pushback, right, is that all lives matter. And so what does it take for our town government, for our town committees to be in solidarity with a Black Lives Matter movement and to say that Black Lives Matter, that people of color matter in our community, and then from there, where do we go? Instead of sort of pulling back from facing head on the most important issue of our time right now.
Right, but and you understand that it's not mine.
This is not towards you, and what I'm trying to say is that is a prevalent conversation, and so for me to just refocus the conversation.
But I do think so. It is important for us to remember that it would be really great not only to have more people of color on the police force, but I like to remind the chiefs, it would be great to have a more mixture of people, because I personally think that the more diverse you can be, you know, whether it's income, I mean, sometimes I think,
And they'll say there are queer people of color, there are women of color, there are poor folks of color, and so looking at people of color does not negate the other things. So that's all I'm inviting, not just you actually happen to just be directing something.
Right.
Thank you.
Take her off the hot seat.
Okay. Thank you for letting me come up and speak.
Yeah, thank you. So, to me, we need to look at the town hiring policy, and we need to look at if we want to influence or try to influence what other institutions in this community do, whether we have a town policy statement, much like the state of Vermont has, sort of to give the message of this is what we think and value in our community. So I'm going to throw that out to the other people in the select board because nobody else has said anything.
I want to speak to my own experience with understanding Black Lives Matter. I was definitely what do you mean all lives don't matter? Well, I'm a person and I matter, and Sheila's a person and she matters. And I had to kind of work out, I'm always better with visuals, like a visual analogy for myself of what it meant to me. And somebody can correct me if I'm like, well, nice job, you sucked at your visual analysis. But I think of it like a playing field, like a ball field, and there's a lot of people on the field right now, but not everybody is on the field right now. So we're just trying to, with Black Lives Matter, for me, what it means is pulling people up who aren't already on that equal field and then letting them play in the game. And I think some people, some white people, see it as more of this aggression and hate towards white people, but I don't think that's what I don't see it as that. And I hope that people can maybe kind of we're just trying to get everybody on the same playing field, and then we can figure out teams and who's playing where and what goes from there. Is that an okay thought of it? Sheila?
Well, I'm just trying to look. So just it's okay. It might be a little confusing, but I like to use for the fire people in the house. The house is on fire, right? And the person comes up to you, but doesn't all houses matter? Doesn't my house matter? But your house isn't the one on fire.
Yeah.
So we like to use that analogy too, to where we talk about, like, everybody loves their home, everybody wants their home to be safe, we want to have a safe community, right? Somebody has a fire, and then that's like somebody coming up to your house and being like, you don't need that fire truck, all houses matter, but your house isn't on fire, so like my house is the one that matters right now. So that's kind of another analogy that we kind of use in the Black Lives Matter. But basically, when all lives matter, when Black Lives Matter, all lives will matter, is what we're really saying. Is unfortunately, in this society, in this country, Black lives are diminished. Black lives are disempowered, and Black lives and bodies are laid on the ground every day and being killed, both by physical means and both by internal and racism every day. And so what it really is saying is that we believe that all lives matter, but until we recognize that disproportionately Black people, Black lives, Black bodies right here in Vermont are not on that same playing field, that ball field that Brandy's talking about, then we're not talking about even all lives mattering right now. We're just talking about some lives, and those lives right now happen to be more generally white lives.
Mm-hmm. And in that, for me, I do want to go, there's always like the bare minimum, the crazy maximum, and in the middle. And while I tend to want to be in the middle, I want to have a stronger, somebody said, and I'm sorry because I heard from so many great people tonight, do some soul searching, do some heart searching. And while I was sitting here, I realized I like the state statement, but it's not enough for me. I would want something that more speaks to what our intentions are than the state statement, personally.
Does anyone? Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda. I don't want to cut you
No,
off.
that's okay. I'd like to hear from you.
Does anyone else have any? This end.
I'll just pick up on that because I really like that last thing you said. I would like something that's not the safe statement. I'd like something that we draft together, all of us, that feels good for our community and for everyone in it. I think I just wanted to make, so there were three things that I really want to see happen, okay? So it's that statement. It's taking a really good look at these recruitment techniques and figuring out how we make them better, how we plug into community members that really do have some knowledge and experience with this. And I like the idea of training. I forget now, it's been a while who threw that out. But I will volunteer for training. I mean, I think I'm on top of this stuff, but you never are as on top of this stuff as you think you are, in my opinion. But I'm just speaking for myself because I don't want to lump the whole board into that promise. The only other thing I wanted to say, and because I could say a lot, I have notes all over, is that I love what Curtis and Alex were both saying about the tie-in to the economic strength of our state, because the statistics are amazing, and we are declining in population, and as I think Curtis said, or no, wait, maybe it was Alex, that a lot of that is white population, and that should be replaced. And to be strong into the future, the perfect thing to do is replace it with people of color, more women in positions of power. So I want to see that happen because it's my personal desire to see Brattleboro specifically not fall victim to an economic bubble as well as a racial bubble. So, and that ties in so well, I think, with racial justice as economic justice. I want to see a Brattleboro that can be afforded by an economically diverse population. I think there's a huge amount of people who live in this town who don't go downtown if they don't need to, because often if you walk downtown, I did it the other day, it's I do it every day. Unless I'm feeling antisocial, I don't go down. But it's a lot of storefronts that can't be afforded by our entire community.
Yes.
And I think to keep our downtown vibrant, I want to create a downtown that appeals to everybody. I have a personal desire to see a laundromat. I mean, come on. There should be a laundromat in downtown Brattleboro. I mean, I needed one until just a few years ago, and then it left. But so that's my sort of personal thing, is that overlap between economic justice and racial justice, and that's sort of my own little focus that I'd like to throw out there.
Yeah. Well, I kind of have some proposals. So
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Okay. Well, the first one is that for our next agenda, we talk about, well, first off, I want to thank everybody that came and spoke, and I hope the people who didn't speak, well, we haven't left yet. So if you have anything to say, please do. But I was hoping to get a much broader view of the issue in the community, because I know I only see a little bit of it, and I don't see nearly as much of the downtown as you do. There are parts I don't see anything of. But I also wanted a more sophisticated view because of some of the things that I saw in the report. When I saw that we had a couple of candidates for police jobs who didn't come to the interviews, my thought was, well, why? And maybe it's because recognizing you're going to be the first or the pioneer or the only person from your protected class in the community, just don't come back. But I don't know about that. And I think that Curtis shed a little bit of light on that in terms of the training and being aware of what it takes to make someone really, truly welcome. So I recognize that and the other much more sophisticated points that people made. But what I'd suggest for our next agenda is that we based on what a lot of people said, that we talk about promoting the value of diversity to our community by figuring out how we can work with community organizations and business partners to develop a diversity and equity strategy for the town. I think similar to what we heard about from what Burlington's done, rather than just a broad statement, but an actual strategy to work with the town, not just us. And it fits into our goal of contributing to the local economy and working with businesses, working with community organizations, and being a lot more communicative with the community, with information going out and coming in. So I'd like us to basically spend a couple weeks thinking about that and then spend some time talking about how we might go about doing that. And I think probably we can rely on our town staff to come up with some suggestions and some help for us. The other thing, and I'll after we talk about this, I'd like to make a motion, is that we adopt the recommendations for select board consideration that the town staff put together in Peter's memo, and with the addition of the third bullet it talks about conducting training for the management team and others involved in the hiring process, that we add conduct training of the management team, select board, and town staff. And that we offer it to everyone. I don't know that we can require it of people, but if we can, we could do that too. But certainly offer it.
Sorry.
We can?
I don't know.
I don't know, but Bob will tell us.
Sure we can.
And that's why we have people that know these things. And well, that's enough. I made a note about expanding the marketplace for recruiting that came along somewhere in the process as well, and the behavioral change at the HR department. We don't actually have an HR department, but find a way to really, that's under the consider additional ideas from the community. So that's the second thing is I recommend we adopt these with that condition of expanding the training. And then the third thing I think is from the, where'd it go? From the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the policy statement, where it talks about the steps for a voluntary affirmative action program to assure equal employment opportunity. And
Where are you reading?
I'm on page 6 of the legal report, and it's a policy statement for the 64 Civil Rights Act. Number 2, it talks about analysis of the employer's workforce. I think we need to do that so we know what we're talking about. Aside from the fact that it's recommended, you have to kind of prove you have a problem if you're going to consciously or purposely try and do something about it. We need to do that. Under 3, B, developing a recruitment program designed to attract qualified members of the group in question. And this is really the core of it, is to actually put together a concrete plan. We talked about reaching out and all the recommendations that you made, but to put that down in a really concrete series of steps so that we can also, under G, establish a system to monitor the effectiveness of the plan. And the other thing I would include is E, initiation of measures designed to assure that all members of the affected groups who are qualified to perform the job are included in the pool of persons from which the selecting official makes the selection. It's kind of redundant to the purpose of the what did you call it? The affirmative action, the voluntary affirmative action plan, to have that in there. So I would suggest that if we want, that we take those steps or enumerate those steps or flesh out the how we would go about taking those steps in order to develop an affirmative action program that will best serve the goal of equal employment opportunity, which is the last thing on page 7, which is the reason for doing it in the first place. So those are the 3 things I recommend that we take as steps so that we make progress, that we move, so that we don't just talk about this and then try to think about it and try and make changes without a really concrete, purposeful strategy.
Can I add one to yours? I just want to make sure that we put something concrete in place and that we also have metrics. I want to see tracking and then have that come back to the select board on a pretty regular, whatever makes sense for a regular basis, twice a year, more. No.
Let me ask you a question. So we want to do the staff's recommendations or Peter's recommendations. Yeah, I've lost what page it is. And then page 6, number 2, which is do the analysis. And I think we just have to know where basically it's who is our workforce. Is what we're trying to figure out.
In this case.
But not our current employees, right? Because we already figured that out.
No, we haven't figured that out. We haven't done an analysis of the workforce.
I'll defer to Bob for more purely legal advice, but I can tell you from what I understand of what the law requires, the administrative effort to move through those various things. I don't think we can be picking and choosing which ones make sense to us if we're leading to a policy.
Right.
We can if we're just trying to inform the discussion. But if we're leading to a policy, I think we've got to follow them all. And we're going to need some specialized assistance in that because of the complexity of the law. So I would suggest that if the board wants to consider moving down the steps of potentially doing an actual formal policy that would lay out how and under what circumstances the town would provide preference, and then measure against that in the manner that the memo describes as being required.
Yeah, I have a problem
that that you take the other steps first initially, that a prerequisite to actually going through that process, that formal process, and getting the outside assistance that we need to make sure we get it right, would be to establish the target more explicitly. So taking the initial steps, which I think we all acknowledge are just initial steps. There's a lot of work to be done in defining as a community or what else needs to be done around that very explicitly. And that's what you were talking about, I think, is moving forward. Next steps on that as soon as the next meeting.
And you're talking the next steps, just to clarify for everybody, are the ones that you've recommended.
Well, no, what I'm saying is two things. So there's the immediate things we can do by just opening up our process to receiving assistance from anybody who is willing to help. And then I heard in a couple of different ways, but similar statements from at least three of you. You want it to be a town statement, not modeled after the state's statement. And you, Dave, were very explicit about saying that ought to be focused on how we can be working with the community. And I heard a lot of voices. I tried to add my own to that this evening about the importance of the collaboration part of this, that it's not just something that
was the first
government does.
You pointed out in your report.
Right. So I think if we commit ourselves to doing the stuff that we can immediately do, and getting on with the collaborative work of establishing where we want to go together as a community on this issue, then we can build into that as we start moving down that road, the steps that you were talking about related to the official policy. My word of caution to you, I don't mean to be the wet rag here over the positive feeling of identifying a clear path forward, but I think we need to be talking about where we want to go before initiating the steps of getting there.
Yeah.
Well, hold on one sec.
Sorry, I was going to say, Curtis, if he might have had something helpful to your statement, or because I still want John to hear anything from you if you want to say something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to jump in there.
That's what I was going to I wanted to just make sure we're all on the same page. So
policy is what policy does. Okay. You don't need to change what you're doing policy-wise by way of establishing we have a short-term strategy, a medium-term strategy, and a long-term strategy as it relates to increasing workforce diversity in town government. You don't need to recraft your existing policy to do that. What it means is sitting down, figuring out, and Gunny's already done this to some extent, in terms of a long-term strategy. One of the things that he does is he goes to elementary schools and they read to kids. I mean, it's part of a long-term strategy of looking at placing law enforcement in a positive light so that young people, elementary school kids, can say, oh, this is an option for me if I decide to go in that direction. The Department of Transportation runs a summer camp for middle school kids for about the last decade, introducing them to careers around, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, et cetera. That's a long-term strategy. There are medium-term strategies around mining talent at historically black colleges and universities, around dipping your line into the pools of associations of folks of color around specific jobs that you're trying to fulfill. The Asian agriculture is looking for large animal veterinarians. So, you can either rely on, just going to UVM or, historically black colleges that have large animal programs. It doesn't cost you any more money. In fact, it costs you less money to advertise in those pools. The challenge is selling Vermont, which is not all that difficult to do if you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the things, and I don't want to stop a conversation, but we have been talking now for almost 3 hours, and we still have about 3 hours left on our agenda.
Oh,
so
okay.
What I would love to do is if we can, if we want to vote on the things that David said, to immediately take the recommendations from staff and move forward with those, and then put the item again on another agenda, because we gotta, I think we all want to do something right away. We can take the low hanging fruit, which is what, your recommendations are, to do things right away. Move this. You know what I mean? And sort of move us in at least get one thing we can get done tonight immediately, if we want to do that. And because it's 9 o'clock, we sort of have to. We're not going to solve the problem tonight. Basically, is what I'm saying. I would love to. Yes, Tim.
I have two comments. One more practical. Right after whatever we do right now, can we take a break?
Yes, we're going to.
Real short.
Oh yeah, I need a break too.
I would be okay with kind of coalescing everything that you were talking about, David, because I didn't even quite grasp all of it, or maybe.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because it's getting late a little bit, but I'm wondering if we can craft something that we can vote on next meeting.
Oh, you
or
mean
if you guys want to do something,
No,
because I just don't understand what that something is.
No. I think what I was saying was just tonight, and maybe David is on page 3 of the memo where it says recommendations for select board consideration, which includes inviting anyone to sign up to receive the job postings, ask the community organizations for help, conduct trainings for the management team, find ways and others.
Everyone.
Yeah, everybody, all of us, the select board. Through our town government service, find ways to increase cultural awareness and appreciation of diversity throughout the community, and consider additional ideas. Like, we could vote on, yes, we're going to accept those recommendations tonight, not craft any policy tonight, because I think whatever we crafted right now would probably
take weeks to
yeah,
figure out.
and be really bad if we just all of a sudden in 5 minutes decided to do something. Not that we're not smart people, but
No, I think
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think if we accept Peter's recommendations with the addition of offering it to everybody.
Yes.
And the first thing you said was we need to take this to the whole community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of that other thing I want us to rethink.
Exactly.
So
Right.
Yes.
I think that encompasses it. I agree that if we do these things, then we're 6 months or somewhere down the line, we're seeing that nothing's coming of it, and we need to think more formally. Then I'm certainly welcome to go through prepared to go through all the steps of putting together a formal policy, so that it happens. Basically look at the results.
May
But for
I?
now, and until
Sorry.
we talk about it again next month or next week, 2 weeks.
May I say it back to you, because I want to make sure that I've understood. I think we're going to vote on what you've just suggested here in a minute. I think you're going to vote on that, and I want to make sure I understand what your expectation is for me then to bring back for the preparation for the next meeting. And I think what it is you would be making a motion to approve the 5 bullets under the recommendations on page 3, and I'm going to not get all your words exactly right. I apologize for that. I was writing them down and not quite getting all of it. That there would be an item next time where you would discuss promoting the value of diversity in the community by working with the community to develop a strategy for achieving certain measures of diversity.
I wrote down what was described, I think, about from Burlington, the diversity and equity strategy for the town.
Okay. So if you could give me what you wrote down about what the topic is that you want for next time, we can make sure that we
diversity
have that and can provide some additional backup for you around that topic. about what is going on in the community and how we can engage as a community. And then you'll have something you can decide whether that sounds like it makes sense to you or whether you want to go a different way, and you may hear a different path from the community at that time. So
Before then.
or before then. So just to give the conversation a jumping off point, I'd like to use your language around that. And then on these 5 things, some of it will actually get implemented tomorrow because it can be implemented tomorrow. And then on the training and the promoting of cultural awareness, there'll be some additional things we'll need to talk about, actually concretely moving that forward, defining what it is we're going to do and, how we're going to do that and get a proposal and, award the work and get on with it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. I'm not sure about everybody else.
Can I suggest a motion? I know you guys don't like the chair to make motions, but I'm going to suggest one. I like to move that we adopt the recommendations on page 3 of the town manager's June 1st, 2017 memo to us, adding on adopt the recommendations on the page 3 of the town manager's June 21st, 2017 staff diversity and hiring practices memo, amending and adding to bullet 3 where it says conduct training of the management team and others. It should read conduct training of the management team, the select board, and others involved in the hiring process. Does that?
Not just involved in the hiring.
Not just involved in the hiring
And
process.
others, and others in town.
And staff.
And staff, okay.
I have that message.
Management and staff.
Okay. Okay, so is that a good motion? And that we're gonna ask the town manager at the next, we'll have to set the date, which at
June 20th.
we'll do it June 20th, to come to us with, do we want the strategy right away, or we want recommendations for a diversity and equity strategy?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
what I heard Dave suggesting was we talk about how we want to facilitate the engagement. We want to get the process started of being at this together, not just up here.
Okay.
And that's what I think is a manageable 2 weeks from now goal,
Yeah, cool.
is to lay out to say, here's how I think we can get involved in this together as a community. And then either that's going to make sense to you and make sense to people who want to join in, or it's not, and then we'll reshape it if it needs to be reshaped. But to give us a place to start to talk about what that collaboration looks like, building on collaboration that's already been going on in places around town, I think is what you want to tackle next time.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to accept the 5 bullets, I already said all of that, and we're going to ask that we begin the discussion at the June 20th meeting on how we can have a community conversation on diversity and equity, on a diversity and equity strategy. Is that what we're talking about? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's right?
Jan,
Does Jan, you get all
Is
that?
that last part
And what we want
part of the motion,
Well, I
or
don't
is
know-
that just a
I
direction
don't
for
know
the
if-
town manager?
I don't know if we have to put that in the motion that we want to talk about this on June 20th.
Yep.
I think we just do the 5 bullets, and then for the motion.
These guys will hold us to it.
Okay, does that make sense, Jan?
Right.
In a motion.
Does that make sense? Okay, so the motion is, in a nutshell again, that we accept the 5 bulleted recommendations on page 3 of the town manager's June 1st, 2017 Staffing and Diversity Hiring Practices memo, including in the 3rd bullet, the select board.
And staff.
And staff. We take not just the ones
Right.
involved in hiring.
Management team, the select board, and staff.
Yep.
Everybody understand the motion?
We have a question.
Oh, yes.
So, point of clarification, so you all are saying you're gonna work with the community on other issues coming up. Will that be working with the diverse communities on drafting your either statements or whatever
Yes.
you're going to have to, so it's not just all of you?
Exactly. Oh, no, that's right. The intent.
That's what you're
Yeah,
saying,
the
right?
intent is at the June 20th meeting, Peter's going to come to us with a recommendation on how we
About
can
a
go
process.
to craft the thing. Yes,
Yeah,
it's all process.
Right.
I'm
So
sorry
I
to
don't know if
interrupt.
that was included in that.
I want to make really, really clear that the reason that I was what I call the wet rag, the reason I was asking that we go a little slower is I think it's really important that we define first a process that together we think actually we can get involved with together and then move forward with actually doing the work rather than trying to start doing the work with the idea that we should be collaborating. I think we should talk first about how to collaborate effectively as a community.
And is there a way to get information in a more timely manner before the meeting so we can be engaging, whether if we can't be here or if we can be here, we could be more thoughtful and precise about our comments? My understanding is like some of the stuff that was out today, you either had to come here and get it or it was an hour before the meeting started.
Oh, it was posted actually on the internet last Friday.
Okay, great.
But let me say about timeliness. We can have a lot of opportunity to get stuff out and have it be out there in the community for a bit before we come together to talk about it if we don't have this on the June 20th agenda, if we go to July 11th. But if it's going to be June 20th,
It's going to be quick.
it's going to take us a little time to put it together, and it's going to be 5 or 6 days again like it was this time.
Is this going to...
It took 9 months to develop the strategic plan for diversity and equity for the city of Burlington. I would recommend that you post that on the town website for people to take a look at.
Okay.
And that might generate some thinking around, wow, we didn't think about this aspect of it or that aspect of it. But it was a collaborative process that took 9 months to produce.
I'll put it on social media too immediately.
Microphone? Would you use the microphone, please?
Oh, sure. Hi, Ruth Van Clay, Brattleboro resident. It sounds like there's a job opening that you're asking for work from the community. I don't know how well we do telling you what you need to know, but it sounds like there's a job that's available that maybe immediately to help you with this process, to quicken the pace.
Okay.
So that's all.
Sure, thank you. All right, so we have a motion. Do we all know what the motion is? To accept the 5 bullets? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, the motion carries 5-0. And at this particular moment, the next time we'll talk about this will be June 20th.
Okay.
And if something we find like we can't do a good job by June 20th, we think we're going to be able to do it. Yeah.
But Curtis's recommendation was really and correct me if I'm wrong, was to have a little bit more time to get a little bit more feedback. So why don't we push it to the July 11th meeting? And then we're
starting our 9 months on June 20th. I think
This is the entire packet on the diversity discussion.
June 20th. We're going to take I hate to do it, but just 5-minute break. Project update, and we will hear that from the town manager.
Thank you. In the interests of time, I'm going to skip over where we are in the construction process, except to say it's still all going smoothly. If you have a question, please ask me. We have tonight, though, an update on the overall financial status of the project and a request for $123,000, I believe, is the number. You would think I would have highlighted it. $123,824 of expenditures, and they are for $102,764 for the generators. We've talked about multiple times before. We've now arrived at the point where we ought to buy them and install them at the 3 locations. I want to make a special point here that we had originally allocated $200,000 for this and then had recently dropped that to $150,000 because we knew that we were getting some pretty favorable pricing. Steve Horton kept working at it and has found 3 appropriate generators for the 3 sites for a grand total of $102,764, a good savings for the town on that big item. And then the telephone systems for the police station and the central fire station at $11,000 for police and just under $10,000 for central fire. We're asking that you please authorize that I proceed with those 3 purchases. And the good news is, in addition to, I mean, these are things that need to be done. We knew they were going to need to be done, and now's the time. But an especially nice part of this is because we're taking the $150,000 placeholder off of the overall financial analysis. So we've been setting that aside from our available balance, saying it's not available because we knew we needed to buy the generators, but we're buying them for 102 instead. We're actually increasing the bottom line of what's available for the remainder of the project compared to your last report. I'm not saying we're creating money here, but based on the planning we had done and now being able to implement at a lesser cost, the bottom line of what's available has increased to it's increased by $26,000 to $727,993 that's available for the remainder of the project.
Did you have to say that in front of the chiefs?
Well, they know it, and we still have in front of you, as we have had these for these last several months, it was a good request that one of you made back in, I think, February, and so we've been carrying, I think it might have been, and we've been carrying forward ever since then the list of things we know we're still going to come ask you for. And when you get through all of those, we still think we're going to end up with about $300,000 available to reallocate to other capital. So we'll keep you posted as this continues to evolve.
Steve, did you get the generators at Home Depot? Did you? Goodbye.
Does anyone on the board have any questions about them?
Just have a comment.
Yeah.
Do they make, listen, I'm not gonna stall out this project because it needs to move forward, but do they make generators that are other than diesel fired? Because that doesn't super align
They
with
do.
our-
Diesel and propane are the most common. I don't know whether there's any other alternatives. And Steve has recommended the diesel rather than the propane because we have propane heat in the buildings, and we don't want to be dependent. Basically, if one system fails, we want to be able to rely on the other. It's not that they do the same thing, but if we lose both at the same time, we're in a bigger problem.
Okay.
And so that's why he recommended doing diesel for the generators.
It's a test. Yeah, okay, good. Because I just want to make sure we're staying in line with our fossil fuel commitments for the town plan.
Yep, understood. Again, these are emergency generators as opposed to primary systems of the building.
Absolutely.
Wait, does anyone else have any questions?
My only question is, if I wanted to go out and see the work progress?
Anytime. We'd love to take you out for a tour.
Go, or should I check in?
It would be better to coordinate through our office. We'll get you hooked up with Steve, and he'd love to walk you through. We'll get you a hard hat.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want.
Show you the project.
Just wear a hard hat.
Selfies.
I got an old one.
Great. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town manager to proceed with the purchase and installation of emergency generators for all 3 police fire locations in the total amount of $102,764,000, with the purchase and installation of a telephone system and telephones for the police station in the amount of $11,070. And with the purchase and installation of a telephone system and telephones for the central fire station in the amount of $9,990.
We have a motion to authorize the town manager to proceed with the purchase and installation of a few items for the police and fire locations. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0. Now we have the Living Memorial Park swimming pool renovation. Oh, I thought we were doing the wrong one. Yeah. Living Memorial Park pool renovation. Peter's going to give us the update. We had this discussion last meeting.
Yes, we did, and we didn't expect to have to come back and have it again tonight, but we do. I'll summarize for you, and then if you have a question about the construction aspect of this, Steve can address that, and if you have a question about the pool operation aspect of it, Carol can address that. But the summary is that when the proposal for the remedial work came in at $42,000 after we had expected a number much lower than that, and had asked you last time for an appropriation of what we thought was a comfortable amount of up to $20,000. When the proposal came in at 42, we immediately turned to Steve Horton, who has assisted us in a number of different ways at the library project and, of course, on the police fire projects and other things here in town, to leap into this and help us sort it out. We wanted to make sure we knew that there was a complicated situation based on some of the issues we encountered last fall and then what we've encountered again this spring and the remedial work that's required and, potential differing responsibilities among the parties. And so we needed some construction expertise in a hurry. Turned to Steve for that. He leaped in, has been to the site, has talked to the parties, and it's his determination, not a final determination in terms of the additional communication that needs to go on among the parties related to the project, but it is determination that in order to move this forward now, to get the pool open as soon as possible, hopefully on time on June 17th, that while $42,000 was a little higher than really needed to be, we thought the price for this work, it was not way out of line. And Steve had negotiations with the contractor and worked that number down to $30,000. We think now that that's a fair price, notwithstanding our prior expectations. And so we ask you tonight to authorize an additional 10. You previously authorized up to 20. We're asking you to authorize an additional 10 so that we can pay $30,000 for the remedial work and get the pool open and then sort out the details. The schedule for getting the pool open is we're still shooting for June 17th, but particularly with the weather of the last few days, it's a little iffy now. So if you authorize this tonight, the next couple of days look really good. The contractor can probably get in and get out and finish his work on those 2 additional days that would be available tomorrow and Thursday. The town team will come in immediately behind that and do the painting and the filling and getting the chemicals balanced and everything, get it safe so that we can open it to the public. We're right at about the place where anything that doesn't go perfectly right between now and the 17th would cause it not to open on the 17th, but we feel comfortable that by the time school lets out at the beginning of the following week, so that gives us an extra 3 or 4 days before kids would want to be in there every day. We're real comfortable that barring something else unforeseen, we're going to open by then. And there's still a possibility, but it's getting slimmer, that we would open by the 17th.
If this weather keeps up, we'll be skating on it.
So reluctantly, we're here to ask you to please authorize the additional 10 so we can move forward.
Wait, does anyone have any questions about the additional $10,000 that's being requested?
No, just want to say thank you, Steve and Carol, for all the work.
Yeah. Does anyone in the public have any questions about the $10,000 that we're being asked to approve?
Well, I move to approve the additional funding of $10,000 for the Living Memorial Park Swimming Pool Renovation Project, Phase 1.
We have a motion to approve the additional funding of $10,000 for the Living Memorial Park Pool Renovation Project Phase 1.
That's it, Carol.
That is it, Carol, yep. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? The motion carries.
No more clumsy backsies.
Don't want to come back, sis.
Next up is new business, and it's a parade permit for the 4th of July parade.
Yes.
Sorry to speak to this. Do you want me to tell what it is?
You want to promote it?
Well, that would be
your brother.
Would it? Okay, so I'll say. This is in the same form as you've seen it for the last few years. We have the O'Connor family to thank for picking the project up and running with it when broader support from the community transitioned. Waned, thank you. Waned, and yet there has been fundraising and other efforts.
Oh, yeah.
It still is a collaborative effort, but somebody needed to take a hold of it and champion it, and the O'Connor family has done that. So Kevin is the requester of this, the applicant. And I will say that the town staff throughout the year works together on the longer term planning aspects for the event. There's of course a lot of town sponsored activities that go on, not as part of the parade, but as part of the day. And there's town staff work that goes on in support of the parade in the same manner as for the other major events downtown. So we have done that coordination. We recommend your approval of this parade permit, and I will say that the additional details regarding kind of final tweaking plans for the day of the 4th There's a meeting that's planned for this Thursday where a variety of town staff and Kevin will be together to put the finishing touches on that. So we recommend your approval.
Kate, you want to make it?
Do you want me to make the motion?
Yeah.
I move that we approve a parade open air application for the annual By the People Brattleboro Goes Forth Parade. Anyone have any comments on that?
That's your limit for the month, and
all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is the naming of a private road, which would be Farmhouse Square, where the Retreat Farm is.
So I need to declare that my wife is employed at Retreat Farm, so I just want that to be clear before I tell you that this has been reviewed by the planning department and meets the requirements for the naming of a private street. And we recommend that you approve naming the road into and around the center of the Retreat Farm property as Farmhouse Square.
well, I think there's a conflict of interest here. I don't know about this.
Also, the farmhouse is not in the square, and the square is not square. So,
Sort of weird. All right, does anyone have any questions, comments about renaming the road?
I move we approve the name Farmhouse Square for a private drive at Retreat Farm.
All right, we have a motion to approve the name Farmhouse Square for the private drive at the Retreat Farm. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone abstaining or opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Next up is the Harris Place drainage line problem.
You are late, buddy.
Good evening again.
You have to call in sick tomorrow.
Steve will tell us about the necessity for the project. I'd like to just note in the introduction of it that while it is frustrating to have this as another emergency, we've had a string of these, so we've got 3 or 4 that we're balancing right now in terms of capital emergencies. They do remind us of the importance of maintaining the 10% fund balance standard because these things do happen. They also remind us of the importance of staying on top of our infrastructure needs, which is a broader conversation we'll keep having at budget time. But as it relates to this right now, he's going to tell you why it has become urgent that we address this. And why we believe we're getting very favorable pricing, especially under the circumstances. Sometimes in these emergencies, we're kind of at the whim of whatever's, an available contractor can charge you almost anything that they can get away with. That's not what's happening here, which is an important bright side to this. But we're searching hard for bright sides. The fact that we have money available that you can allocate on an emergency basis to this, and then we can either find savings later to offset it or get a retroactive action at the next town meeting. The fact that we are in that kind of financial condition is a bright side, and the fact that we've got favorable pricing is a bright side. But otherwise, what we've got is an emergency.
So I'll briefly go through my memo that you have in your packet, but also the public will be able to get the detailed report on this. The Brattleboro Department of Public Works is seeking approval to award a design build contract to ECI of South Burlington, Vermont for the repair of a failed drain line between Harris Place parking lot and the railroad tracks for $121,513. The failed drainage line is now compromising Harris Place lot due to the slope failure and embankment to the railroad tracks. Recent rains have escalated the erosion, ramping up the urgency of this repair. DPW staff is recommending repairs be made as soon as possible. The staff has been monitoring this failed drainage line between Harris lot and the railroad tracks for some time, actually. This is a very difficult area to get a contractor to work in. You have the railroad tracks, you have high tension power lines in that area. It's just not an easy place to go. And there's special permits that are also needed to work in this area. With the recent rain that we've had, it's just really washed this bank out more to the point where I really feel nervous about it. And so we did get ECI contractors in here to do the estimates, and they've done a lot of work with us in the past. We've had water main breaks underneath the tracks. We've had to make repairs, and they're certified by the railroad, and they seem to get things done in a very quick manner. So their representatives came down, they gave us a proposal, and it was $121,513. And we think that's a big advantage to get this proposal from ECI. First of all, they specialize again in working near the tracks, and also with the power company. They've already made arrangements with them. They currently have availability too, which is another thing this time of year with contractors and the rainy weather. It's put a lot of people behind in schedule. And they're able to give us the people that we need to do the work. And other than that, if the town were to put this out to bid, I guess we looked at that also because although we did have this contract from ECI, we were interested if we did have to put it out to bid, what the cost would be. And we had Stevens Engineering do a standard engineering proposal, and that came at $160,865. And just the engineering alone for that would probably be around $30,000. So we're recommending that we accept the proposal from ECI from South Burlington to make this repair. And also, once this repair is made, Patrick and I have been working on a parking lot improvement project also. That'll enable that project to move forward too. So if this isn't fixed, we can't do the parking lots anyways, because the drainage from the Gibson-Aiken will need to go into this drainage port, and also the Harris lot itself. So it's important that we do it. We've been monitoring a long time. Unfortunately, the rain just made things worse. So I encourage you to accept this bid by ECI.
Does anyone on the board have any questions?
Quick, I know it's late. Quick question on the funding, just because, Patrick, I guess this memo is from you. At the beginning of the last paragraph, you say the town has options for how to address the funding for this project. But then it looks like it's just describing what happens if we're proceeding as proposed. What are the other options for funding this project?
Well, I guess the options that I was trying to point out were, let me step back for just a second. And one of the points I think is really critical to make clear is that the select board has the authority to deficit spend in times of a crisis. And I think given what Steve has indicated, this is a situation that needs to be resolved. And in terms of the options for how to fund the project, the primary recommendation is to be looking for savings in the year in which the project is constructed. That would be fiscal year 18. That'll begin in July. So if over the course of the year, the administration and the board are able to identify specific expenses in the budget that we can elect not to fund, we've got some offsetting savings that can then accommodate this project. If it turns out that we are unable to, the other option is to approach town meeting, representative town meeting, and seek an allocation of the unassigned fund balance.
Right, okay. I guess I was just confused by that first sentence because it seemed like maybe we were missing something because that feels like saying that you're just going to find the money doesn't feel like an alternate funding plan to me. It feels like just kind of hoping you're going to find money for it. So basically it has to come from the other side.
Yeah, one thing that may not have been conveyed as clearly as we could have there is you could simply say we're not going to do a certain project like the parking lot paving that you previously approved. You could say we're going to not do that, we're going to do this instead. Now you've saved the money and you're done. That's one option. Right. We wouldn't recommend that option because of this broader phenomenon we have that we're behind in maintaining our infrastructure. And so in order to reduce the frequency of these kinds of emergencies, we want to stay better on top of the project. So the things that have been identified as this year's priorities, we want to make sure we get done. So then there's a second place, which is, rather than just saying, okay, well, we don't want to not do a project, a different project, and so we're just going to go to town meeting. The second place in between is, let's see if in the course of implementing the upcoming fiscal year budget, we're able to save money in other places sufficient to offset the cost of this. And only then, if we're not able to do that, would we go to town meeting and say, we had to do this thing back in July of 2017, and so now we need for the town meeting to ratify that it was an appropriate emergency expense.
Okay, it's kind of, I didn't mean to call you out, it's more of a semantics thing, I guess, the way I read it.
It's not so much option A, B, C, it's more of a cascading process.
And obviously, you can tell that if we keep being told that we'll find the money, that's not a fiscally responsible way to operate.
Absolutely right.
But I do believe that this project is very needed.
Another thing, in the past, when we've had problems like this, so what you're doing is you're looking at your savings account just like if it was at your house. And an example just earlier in the meeting was the savings in that truck in the utilities division. Well, you could have the same savings in something in the highway department with the sweeper or something of that nature. So then all of a sudden you might be $20,000 ahead. And and so we're going to say that money's probably pretty likely going to go right towards this project. Or if there was a later winter, we didn't use as much salt or any of those things, then that's going to be on our mind the whole time of how do we conserve and how do we save money because we got an unexpected expense.
Right. And I totally appreciate that. So.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
I move we authorize the town manager to approve a contract in the amount of $121,513 with ECI of South Burlington, Vermont, for an emergency capital improvement project to repair the Harris Place drainage system and the adjacent embankment.
All right, we have a motion to authorize the town manager to approve a contract with ECI of South Burlington for an emergency capital improvement project to repair the Harris Place drainage system. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is what is it? Law enforcement grant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. Next up is a law enforcement grant for the police department.
And there are actually 3 on the agenda this evening. All 3 are recurring grants. One is a special investigations child advocacy grant where the department places an employee with the Child Advocacy Center and does collaborative work around child protection issues, not just in Brattleboro, but primarily in Brattleboro, but also to the benefit of the region. And then the second one that's for $60,000 from the state. The second one is an $85,000 grant from the Vermont Department of Public Safety for the Drug Task Force Undercover operation. We won't say anything further about that for obvious reasons, except that the department participates in that and receives funding assistance for the support that we provide to the region. And the third is a smaller grant, but an important one to us. We always budget some of our own money each year for the cyclical replacement of bulletproof vests. It's important that, in fact, I think it's required, actually, that the bulletproof vest be replaced on a certain interval. Is it 4 years? 5 years. Every 5 years, each officer needs to have a new vest on. And so it's important that we keep up with the replacement policy. We budget funds anticipating this grant because this grant has been a recurring, dependable one. And so it supplements the money that we put into it, and we buy enough vests in any given year that over the 5-year cycle, we're keeping everybody in a proper vest. We recommend your approval of the 3 grants.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about the 3 grants? Anyone in the public have any questions or comments about the 3 grants?
I guess the last thing I have to say just quickly for the record is these are applications. You know, we come to you to ask for permission to apply, and then we come to you to grant, to actually accept and appropriate the grant. These are applications, but in this instance, they're dependable recurring grants.
Yeah, and we hope that we get to accept the grants.
Yes.
Right now, we're going to do the applications.
Correct.
Make a motion to approve 3 grant applications for the police department as follows. Number 1, Special Investigations Unit Child Advocacy Center grant from the state of Vermont in the amount of $60,000. Number 2, Drug Task Force Undercover grant from the Vermont Department of Public Safety in the amount of $85,000. And number 3, the Bulletproof Vest Partnership from the Bureau of Justice Assistance in the amount of $5,075.
Great, we have a motion to accept 3 grant applications for the police department. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstaining or voting no? Motion carries 5-0. Next up is another grant, this one from the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns.
It is a grant for $4,422.23, and this is actually accepting and appropriating. This is money that's being offered to us. The way we qualify for this is by following the guidance of the League of Cities and Towns PASIF program is what provides our property and casualty liability insurance, and so when we follow their guidelines and do the training that they recommend, we earn points that qualify us for kind of basically a rebate on the premium that can go towards the purchase of additional safety equipment or additional safety training. And so that's what this $4,422.23 is for.
Thanks. Anyone have any comments or questions about the passive grant?
I move to accept and appropriate a passive equipment grant from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns in the amount of $4,422, this always kills me, and 23 cents.
We have a motion to accept and appropriate a passive grant from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns in the amount of $4,422.23. Just for you, John.
You betcha.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining?
Nobody can round up.
Motion carries 5-0. The next is, we're being asked to approve a 2% pay increase for non-union employees.
Yeah, so
The town
the,
manager will explain it.
thank you. So the union employees' pay raises are governed by the various collective bargaining agreements with those groups of employees. The non-union employees, which are the management employees, a couple of confidential employees, and some part-time employees, their compensation is established by the actions of the select board, that they're not bound by any particular contract. In the preparation of the budget for this upcoming fiscal year, we had discussions back in the wintertime about the appropriateness of a 2% raise given the compensation adjustments that are being made through the collective bargaining agreements for the other employees. And I recommended that we include funding for a 2% raise for the non-union employees in the budget that was recommended by the select board and approved by town meeting. And so this is now the moment of implementing that effective July 1st with the new fiscal year, and I recommend your approval.
Does anyone have any questions about the 2% pay increase for non-union employees?
I do not. Seems like the right thing to do.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
I will move to approve a 2% pay increase for non-union employees effective July 1st, 2017.
See, Brandy, I liked it when you made them up as you went along.
Well, I can keep doing that. Jan might not like it.
That was so good.
Okay, we have a motion to approve a 2% pay increase for non-union employees effective July 1, 2017. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0.
I'm a little punchy. 10 o'clock.
It's almost 10. We're going to get by 10. Next up is the annual dog warrant.
I want
And
somebody to read them all.
7 pages of dogs.
I will have the town manager explain. This is something we have to do every year.
Right. So the deadline for licensing a dog in the town of Brattleboro each year is April 1st. In January, a notice is sent out to everybody who has registered a dog in the prior year to remind them that it's the time of year to do that again. When April 1st comes and goes, and there are still some who have not relicensed their pet, their dog in particular, then a second notice is sent to remind them that, hey, it's now overdue, we need you to license your pet. When we get to May 30th, according to the state statutes, the staff is actually obligated to generate a list of those dogs who are not properly licensed in the town and bring that list to the select board so that you can authorize the dog warrant, which is a formal legalistic state statute way of saying that you are affirming that these who are on the list are late and it's appropriate for them to pay a penalty in addition to the annual licensing fee. There is language in the warrant, because it's straight out of the statutes, that refers to the potential of a dog being euthanized. We never have, and we never will. That's a question that's been raised over the years by prior select boards. I want to make sure you understand that that's only in there because it's part of the required legal language in the form of the warrant. What we do use this tool for is to impose a financial penalty on those who have not paid by this time.
Yeah, I do have to say, because I know I always complain about that language, because the wrong person is being punished ultimately. It's not the person, it's the person holding the leash, not the one at the end of the leash that is not paid their
So I hope the
fine.
ASL
So
interpreters are ready for all this, because we're going to read every name.
No.
I want to read all the dogs' names.
Aren't they cute?
They both passed out over there.
Are you saying on the end of the leash is also a person?
No, I'm saying.
Yes, she did.
I didn't mean that. I meant the.
We don't judge.
The animal at the end is not the one, it's the person holding the leash that should be in trouble.
Yes.
It's better.
Yeah, but I could have said it more eloquently if it wasn't 9:55. Would anyone like to make a motion?
To approve the annual dog warrant.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the annual dog warrant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries 5-0.
Say aye, but I don't like the financial penalty. I just have to put that up.
All right, I think we're done. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstaining or saying no? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
We did it.
Everybody
Thanks,
who stayed.
Olga.
Yes, all the press.
Chris,
watching us.
Rodney, Olga.